September 22nd, Thursday, 2022. And Adam, will you please take the roll and leave it open for Commissioner Porter, please?
Commissioner.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just, I'm so used to looking up that you're not there. I'm sorry, Laura.
That's okay. Commissioner Kern.
Here.
Commissioner Doherty.
Here.
Commissioner Floyd.
Here.
Commissioner Melidas.
Here.
Commissioner Revolve.
Here.
Chair Rosenbaum.
Here. The first item is the approval of the August 18th, 2022 commission meeting. There's no discussion. I need a motion. So moved. Moved by Commissioner Doherty.
Commissioner Kern.
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty.
Here. Yes.
Commissioner Floyd.
Yes.
Commissioner Melidas.
Yes.
Commissioner Revolve.
Yes.
Chair Rosenbaum.
Yes. Oregon Brewers Guild update, Christina LaRue. I don't know, Christina, are you on the call?
Chair, I was looking for her and I didn't see her on the call. I've sent her an email and tried to call her, so.
Okay, well, let's put that on hold for now, and if Christina gets on the call later on or shows up, we'll bring it back on. Associated Liquor Dealer Stores of Oregon, update, Salim. Are you there? You are.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chairman.
Good morning. Let's just say here and you're all set.
Commissioner DuPont Porter.
Here. Sorry.
That's okay. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Very good.
I'm easy to find this time. I remember the little glitch last time. But good morning, Chair Rosenbaum, commissioners. My name is Salim Narani, President of Associated Liquor Stores of Oregon. We appreciate the opportunity to periodically update you on the state of liquor retailing in Oregon. I have with me today Oliver Coker, Vice President of the Association, a small business owner with stores in Woodburn and Kaiser, and Dan Miner, a board member with 2 liquor stores here in the Portland area. Today, we will focus on 3 important issues. We feel that the commissioners should be informed and be kept in the loop. Oliver?
Commissioners, you may not be aware that the retail sales agreement and contract, which all liquor store owners must sign and abide by, has not seen any significant changes in the last 25 plus years. As of today, even the sample retail sales agreement on the OLCC website is dated October of 2016. As liquor store owners, we have seen many changes even since 2016. Our retail businesses have changed. The internet is here. Technology has dominated the entire dynamics of our industry. We understand that Chris Mayton, given his workload, has been working on a new retail sales agreement, which is well overdue for major revisions. We appreciate his continued work and would like to emphasize that our partnership and our symbiotic relationship, which exists between our small business liquor store owners and the commission. This relationship and the fairness should be reflected in the contract. The contract which has beneficial elements for both parties has long-lasting effects on how business is conducted and positive benefits for both.
Thank you. Second item that we would like to address is market-based business value. We appreciate the Commission's consideration of small business owners of liquor stores and the request to allow a market-based approach in evaluating the total business value of a liquor store, including liquor and non-liquor revenues, when an agent is approaching retirement. The current model, which is decades old, only considers the liquor sales as a goodwill. This arbitrary average percentage of liquor sales is based on an outdated model. For the last decade, at least, the liquor stores began metamorphing into one-stop shopping centers and destinations. Thanks to Commission's more open policies, we have added beer, wine, cider, gifts, and yes, even bulk chocolates to our mix of inventory. One look at today's modern liquor store highlights the change. The metamorphosis has had a positive effect on liquor sales, not to mention consumer experience. One can see the strong emphasis of the Commission's expectation and how new candidates applying for stores are stepping up to the challenge, along with huge monetary investments. This investment is proportionately way higher than what candidates were expected to just 10 years back. Should we not reward these small business owners for their investment? Why penalize them by not considering the entire business model and cash flow, rather than just the liquor revenue? Under the current model, the outgoing small business owner is subsidizing the new candidate. One example of the difference in resignation buyout under the current system and the loss to the retiring agent. Store resignation buyout, including fixtures and all, $320,500. Certified business value on cash flow for the same business, $1,063,000, which equates to a loss of $742,000 to the retiring agent. The current policy would provide the new agent with an ROI, return on investment, of less than 1.16 years. The business valuation of the above example is included in your packet. The normal ROI based on that valuation would be 4.6 years, still way above industry standards. We have several business owners here on the commission board, and I'm sure you can appreciate the fact. There are going to be challenges in changing outdated policies and moving towards modern current business practices. This is a fundamental shift from previous policy of only considering liquor sales as a valuation model. Key advantages of the change would be to attract qualified entrepreneurs, small business owners, and highly motivated individuals. The outgoing agent would receive true value for the business they worked so hard to build, and creating a one-stop shopping experience for the consumers. This policy would also incentivize existing liquor store owners to invest and upgrade, which is the goal, is to provide a high quality experience to the Oregonians, given the assurance that they will be rewarded in the end. How to best implement so that the applicants and the outgoing small business owners get a fair market value. I feel a simple process, easy to understand, and open communication would be the best approach. Following are some steps to consider. An independent certified valuation and analyst perform a business valuation. The business valuation report must meet a bank or lender's requirement for a business loan. The current liquor store owner would pay for such an evaluation. The liquor store owners may help in finding potential candidates for the business. All applicants for the liquor store to be provided with the report sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and agree to the business valuation, if selected by the commission as the new agent. If there are no qualified buyers for the business, the agent would have the option to either rescind the retirement or reduce the asking value. This way, we are not getting locked into any position. We have flexibility. Finally, create a small work group with agents, OLCC staff, and a couple of commissioners to establish a path for implementing the process. Third item we have on the agenda is also very critical, and I believe you have seen some media coverage and all that, so I'll pass on to Dan Miner. Sorry, I was so focused on what I was going to say, I forgot to have you run the slide, but we do need Dan Miner's.
Hey, Salim, in the interim, I got a question for you. So at the time of buyout, if you're a non-exclusive store, and like you said, you've got chocolates and non-alcohol inventory, cider, beer, wine, gifts, what happens with that inventory as you as a business owner? Do you try and liquidate that before the buyout? How does that come into play, because you're right. You know, that's in your inventory. You've spent money on that. But that's not part of the evaluation come buyout?
Under the current system, you are.
Under the current system.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Commissioner Floyd, you're absolutely correct. And I have known of instances where there has been some issues
Sure.
with the new incoming agent and outgoing agent. And so what the store starts to look like, the last month of the retiring agent, it goes down to bare shelves, which is not good for the system. Also, the new incoming agent not realizing or understanding that you have the established customer base. Now you're shortchanging them, you're giving up in the store, so they keep asking, well, is the business going out of, is the store going out of business or what? So these are the things that would be addressed with this change, because that business valuation done would include also the inventory, existing inventory, all of that. And of course, you know, it's based on cash flow.
Yeah.
So which in the end, no matter what kind of business you're going into, that number one thing to look at is the cash flow. That, okay, is my investment safe? Number one. How long is it going to take my investment back up, recoup my investment? And as you know, Commissioner Rawal and Commissioner Molitas, you know, I'm picking two of you guys in the, you know, the retail side dealing with that. And that's very critical. And once you recoup, then you know that you have a track here. And also the final thing here is, which is really what I'm excited about, and it really kicks into high gear the metamorphosis of existing stores.
Yeah.
There are too many stores out there still not making the investment. I mean, Oliver and myself and Dan, you know, we are forward thinking. So without that guarantee of that I'm going to get my investment back, we did go ahead and make the investment.
Thank
So, question I have is, do we have to have the legislation involved in this situation to change that? And when I was reading the material again last night, it's a lot of things I didn't realize. And of course, when we sold our firm to a much larger organization, goodwill was a whole lot of that.
Mhm.
You know, to the point where even my own son said, "Well, Dad, I wouldn't give you that damn deal. You must be crazy." I said, "No, they were crazy." So that's an important thing.
Right.
Do we have to have?
So, Commissioner Rawal, there have been cases where, since we don't have that separation of liquor stores that are, what's that term where we have just stores only and you have other exclusive and non-exclusive, thank you. That went away with the change when we did this compensation package a couple of years ago. So there is that differentiation is no longer there. So this would be a separate piece. So you're selling a non-related business, which there's no legislative change required.
We don't have to go to Salem.
We do not have to go to Salem. This would be sold as a, so the only thing would be that the commission has to let the incoming applicant know that there is a separate piece of business that is part of this whole piece, and you must agree to buy that piece. Obviously, there has to be justification. If I'm going to ask for $1 million, how do I justify the $1 million? And that's where an independent business valuation comes into play. And the other key point I wanted to put in there, and this gives a lot of, you know, assurance to the incoming agent that, hey, I can take this to the bank, and if the SBA or regular bank is willing to fund, then you know that the business has a real market value.
So what happens if I understand all of that, I have
Sure.
no problems with it.
Right.
But what happens if the prospective owner comes in, and maybe I'm not thinking this out, but the prospective owner comes in and says, I'm not interested in that separate piece. Let's do it. And then 3 months later, turns around and develops that piece. How do you
Well, I think this is where a policy change is required here at the
From us.
commission, from you guys. And that's why my part of my recommendation was that if the commission appoints a new agent, there has to be the understanding that that new agent agrees to buy that other piece of the business as well, because it's a component of the whole piece. It is not, because otherwise I would be foolish if I had the choice. I mean, I'm just thinking this through out, that, hey, why should I pay this guy, like this example that I gave?
Right.
And that's a real example. We just did an ABC company, and that's gonna come up in front of you. And if
Yeah, I
I was
saw
a
that.
businessman, I would just say, hey, I'm not gonna buy this piece. If I don't have to agree to it, why should I pay out that? But what are you doing with that policy is you're shortchanging.
I'm just playing devil's, I
Sure,
understand it, I agree with you.
Sure.
But what happens if we get sued for violation of interstate commerce? Or violation of interference with a contractual relationship? I mean, we could get sued on that.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, my concern, we were talking about, I guess the commission kind of deals with the liquor side of it, because I'm with you, I understand that there's been a lot of changes, but I think kind of looking at it like, you know, the liquor is what we deal with, and valuing the right to have a liquor store is essentially what the agency does. You know, the other stuff is kind of added on. I'm trying to think, like, right now, is your guys' buyout valuation based on just liquor sales, or is it based on liquor sales and beer and wine and others?
If Commissioner Melitas, that's a very good question. And I'm glad you raised that point, because that's where this whole conversation and this crux of this comes down to. Right now, only the liquor sales or the liquor revenue is considered.
Okay.
So you're giving away that other piece.
Yeah, you know, you're right, but that's all the commission. Are we prohibiting you from marketing that independently and selling it to the, okay, yeah. That gives me something to think, because I'm just trying to think of, like, the one thing I worry about with it is, you know, right now we've got, and Chair's point, with all the stuff that's going on in the world, and there's a lot of threats to the system, and you've got a good thing. So sometimes when you know, upset the apple cart and get too many things, and you risk a lot, and you risk this thing that's really the goose that laid the golden egg. So you just want to, I don't know. I think it's good to look at, but you got to remember that really what the commission deals with and what gives those businesses longevity value is the fact that this is solely the liquor sales, and anything above and beyond. But I think you're right. There's change, and I've got a few thoughts on it, but yeah, sorry to interrupt. It was.
No, this is.
If I,
It is interesting.
yeah.
Jennifer, you got something to say?
I think we need to have an open discussion of all the way, and I would like to have, you know, you involved in that conversation on legitimate, what some outside person might want to come after us on, because like, I've seen, went through the photos of all the new facilities out there, and they've done everything we asked them to do 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was make it so basically a woman who's 35 or 40 years old will walk into that liquor store and buy everything and then bring in other people. I mean, these facilities are fabulous. And I hadn't thought about the return on the investment of what I saw in these photographs and what I've experienced walking into Sisters, Wilsonville, these facilities. You walk into, oh my God. And that's $1 million out of your pocket right off the bat that has to do with enhancing that whole experience. And that's what we were trying to create, an experience. And so I don't have all the answers, but we need to have some conversations about this. Questions?
Off the top of my head, I think that it's protecting the, you know, because you said that right now we're making the valuation based solely on the liquor, and I agree with you, maybe that's not fair totality of it, but in terms of your negotiations with the commission, it's probably the way that it should stay, but there should maybe be an allowance for, like, like Goodwill for FF&E, furnitures, fixtures and equipment. And I'm just thinking, yeah, and for revenue that you're making on other things. So if you're building up that business, but I worry about the commission getting too involved in that, because really our relationship with you guys should be focused on the liquor, and it's really for you guys, just because I think it protects it from, like what Chair was saying, some of the commerce stuff, and there's just a lot of other implications. But I'm with you. I think it's got to get looked at and be evolved to this
But
modern thing.
that's also why the commission receives so many applicants when
Right.
there's a vacancy, is because the barrier to entry is so low, as it doesn't truly represent the value of the
Well,
business.
it's not exactly that, and you gotta come in here, you gotta, what other business you gotta get approved by a commission for? Think about that, that's all I'm saying, I mean, it's low, but it's hard to get them, I mean, you know what I'm saying, it's like, it's not anybody can just go start a liquor store. You have to go fly through the state and get approved by us, but I hear what you're saying, yeah.
So there's a lot of outside threats to the industry. I think Commissioner Later said that very succinctly. So in my mind, the stronger the stores are, the more we can combat those threats. Okay, I mean, it makes sense. And I'm hearing from the commission that we need to figure out a way to do that without running afoul of any potential legal issues. I'm very sympathetic. I understand that I want to see it happen, but I think Commissioner Curran should be involved in, if there's going to be some sort of a committee or something, and obviously the State Attorney General's office has to be involved in it. So I think we need to look at this further. And I also think that we'll cooperate as much as we can with you, but we want to be sure that we're on the right grounds to it.
No, and Chair Rosenbaum, I appreciate, your comments there, and I appreciate, Commissioner Melita's comments. And it is true, and it is, we need to be concerned about it. My point here today is to bring it to your attention that there is a huge deficit between the two, what we are asking of the agents and what we are saying, you know what, when you quit, I'm sorry, but we're not gonna give you. That's literally what we're doing. I mean, if you cut through everything, in the end, and as more stores come up and if we slowly start to do this, we can see how the process works. There's one other thing that the commission has been doing when they're selling a business where liquor is part of the business. So they are allowed to sell that business, and the new buyer becomes a temporary agent for 6 months or so, and then comes before the commission to get the appointment. So there are venues.
They'd operate temporarily before being appointed.
Correct. There, and I think Brian Fleming may be able to provide you a little bit more context.
With some feeling of how the commission feels, what do you propose the next step should be?
We need to sit down and really look at this entire picture. First determine, is there a need? Is what we are asking, is it
No, I think
justified?
I think we're past that. I think we're past that stage. You did a great job. You came in here and you said, this is what we need to do. And I think I'm not talking for the rest of the commission, but I think we're there and saying, if we can help you and strengthen it, it's fair. From a business point of view, it's fair. But
Right.
How do we protect
So
ourselves?
I'm very encouraged by that. So what we need to do as a next step is to see how do we go about implementing, and like you mentioned,
Legal analysis.
legal analysis of it. So Commissioner Curran, I think you got roped into that one.
Well, she's our expert here. We looked at her on it.
Well, I'm an expert enough to know that I shouldn't comment until I know more.
Right,
That's why you're an expert.
We did some very good issue spotting today, and we see the issues. But I think it would be good, and I'd be happy to be part of delving into what that would entail. But I agree, yeah.
thank you.
Just the only fear that I got is that we can put a value on what it's worth to have the right to sell liquor in the state of Oregon. Like that's the commission. I don't know that, like, because every business is different. So that's the only part that concerns me, is that if we just sort of say, commission is gonna, this would be my thought off the top of my head. Commission is going to basically treat the buyout the same as we do now, but you can figure out a way to like get whatever your, all your other expenses are, because everyone's gonna be different. I mean, like, and you don't.
And see, right, and I agree, and that's why I focus more on a cash value. So what is at the end of the year, once you have all your expenses out and all that? And that also depends on how good of an operator you are. The better the operator, the larger the cash flow you will have in the end. So then that's going to determine, the total value of, and that's just that's because I'm saying that's, that's how I'm looking at.
Yeah.
As a value in any business that you are looking to buy or so. That's a key component of.
And the two sides of the business are codependent. Certainly the value of the liquor sales is partially dependent upon the value of all the other business that brings into the store, and the reverse
No,
is true as
I
well.
100% agree with you, but what I'm saying is that, like, this commission doesn't deal with that side of your business. I mean, we do to a certain extent.
Well, my point is we bring you that value with the other components of the business that are not liquor.
Right, but yeah, okay, but like I'm just saying, your agency agreement is to sell like distilled spirits though, like with the commission, right? And it's not, I mean, I hear what you're saying on the value of this, but no, I think we're saying the same thing, but yeah, no, it sounds good. I mean, I'm with you on it. I just want to parse through it so we don't lose the whole thing.
No, and we are very aware of that. And, all we're asking is that an outgoing agent should be treated fairly in
Yeah,
terms of
absolutely.
what they should get. If we have somebody spending 20, 30 years
No, absolutely.
working and building, and in the end you get zero value for that other portion, is not right either. So that's all we're asking is, okay, look at the totality of the picture and see how do we best come up with a solution that is within the law. And also it is beneficial to the incoming agent looking at an ROI that, hey, I can pay this off in 4 years, 5 years, and I'm free and clear after that. So,
Commissioner
No,
Bell.
I'm gonna let it go because I'll just be going in a circle thinking that
Well,
this is a great conversation. And it's like,
so I'm gonna take the initiative as chairman that you pick up the phone, call Commissioner Curran. Commissioner Curran can pick 2 other commissioners to be on your committee, and let's see where we go with this then.
Thank you.
I'll just note that, we've gone through this evolution of modernization and expansion. This contract, behind all that was, we've got to do the contract, and we do the contract. Chris has been working on it for some time. Celine and I have had conversations going back 3 years at least, probably four or 5 years, that we've got to work on this piece to make the investment work out right with the private business. I think the most important thing in the end is for all the qualified buyers that want to buy at the valuation of the private business, and then you are always the appointing authority on the liquor sales. Wanted to make that clear. The other thing in this dynamic that we have, because we're modernizing, we let them go to not individual ownership, right? We got LLCs. Businesses are going to change much like they do in marijuana in this case. So it may not be fully determinative of how they can dispose of or change the ownership of a business. So we got to look at that in conjunction with this as we move forward.
It's a matter of fairness, really.
Yeah. And look at the proposals we've had and we're getting. I mean, there is much more investment, and it's out of scale for a lot of folks. The other thing is, this doesn't write new store appointments. We still got our existing flip, so you can get into it. We can still have new barrier or low barriers of entry for new stores out there, but it's definitely changes, the profile you're gonna have to come in here with if you're gonna be making.
Well, we're pretty well set on this.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right, good morning, Chair Rosenbaum,
Good
fellow
morning.
commissioners. My name is Dan Miner. I'm the agent for 1182 and 1256 Portland, Hollywood, and Gladstone. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the issue of retail crime in our stores, which unfortunately has increased significantly over the past several years. The data I'm going to discuss will be based on a tracking spreadsheet kept by OLCC, which records incidents from part of 2017 through the end of fiscal year 2022. The spreadsheet does differentiate shoplifting, robbery, and burglaries, but there's no real analysis of the data other than a simple total of the dollars claimed. Based on the observations in my own stores, I was not surprised to learn that reported shoplifting increased over 450% from fiscal year 18. Burglaries are also up significantly, although the largest spike was in the summer of 2020. And historically, robberies are quite rare, although several have occurred this year. Next slide, please. It's important to note that data collected by OLCC only represents claims identified by agents, which require a police report number and an explanation of the loss. Not tracked is the unidentified losses, which are likely discovered only during cycle counts and the annual OLCC audit. Conventional wisdom suggests that agents likely only discover and report 10, 15, maybe 20% of the true number of incidents. Next slide. The next two slides are just simply graphical representations. The orange line there is the number of claims. Is the dollar amount of claims, and the blue line is the number of events. And then the rate of increase from fiscal year 2018. Next slide. This is a graph from a September 7th, 2022 article in Willamette Week with the data converted to calendar year rather than fiscal year. As you can see, this year is on track to nearly double the reported incidents from last year. OLCC recently published the liquor store bulletin, which states that shoplifting is up 162% over 2021 in terms of the number of incidents. The dollar comparison here was not calculated. Slide. Burglary is also up from 2018. OLCC does not track the business loss the agent experiences, including theft of non-distilled spirits items, lost productivity and lost sales, repair costs, and increases in insurance. Additionally, other burglary incidents like the theft of ATM machines are not necessarily tracked by OLCC. I'm aware of 2 of these incidents of ATM thefts, including one at one of my stores. The rise in crime against our store causes great concern to agents. Foremost is the safety of our customers and our employees. Employee retention is also an issue when crime is more common. Financial impact is a serious concern as agents are responsible for unreported losses, and insurance rates and deductibles also necessarily rise. Another aspect is that the OLCC nor the state does not seem to consider itself as a victim. This is exemplified in the near lack of analysis of the known data, where trends in specific products or geography is missed. Very little information is shared with agents and very few resources are applied to the issue. We now operate in an environment where civic order is an issue, stressing the compensation formula where 8% commission is reasonable. Lack of police presence and apparent lack of prosecution is one of our primary challenges. There are few negative consequences to criminals. Next slide. One district manager does informally aggregate some of the incident reports and has identified groups of serial shoplifters who commit crimes at multiple stores. Some even organized online to take orders. Whether these criminals are caught and held accountable is not shared with agents by law enforcement nor OLCC. Slide. To combat this period of increased crime, agents will need to remain vigilant, train staff, and adapt our business practices. We also need external support. OLCC should dedicate staff to better analyze the data and share information with agents. Together, agents and OLCC should explore other opportunities for resources. The most impactful will be improved law enforcement and prosecution. Finally, all agents should receive temporary relief from audit shortages, which represents a much higher unreported loss than the numbers reflected in the OLCC spreadsheet. Slide. In conclusion, liquor agents do our part. We generate more than twice the tax revenue of the marijuana program and almost 20 times the tax revenue collected on beer and wine. Agents must sell more than $10 in replacement revenue for every $1 in unreported loss, excuse me. The state earns revenue 3.5 times faster than agents. We need your help to make this issue more equitable. Thank you for your time and attention.
What data do we have that we're not sharing with you?
One of the points I've tried to make, sir, is that if there's a robbery, I believe that adjacent stores should be immediately notified. If there's a trend in shoplifting or burglaries, I feel that agents should be notified.
Do we have that data?
We have some of that data, sir, but it's in the general law enforcement. It's not very contemporaneous to us, even on, bar, as you well know, on licensing incidents on premises, often, it's downstream before we even get to police reports on those.
Is that something you could do yourselves in your own network?
Well, I believe that I was actually one of the first to do any real analysis on the data, and it was very high level. I just simply took the fiscal year totals and then compared from fiscal year to fiscal year to observe the increase. But that data I had to ask for. It was delivered very quickly, but that spreadsheet lives here. And it shouldn't take an agent to do those simple calculations to even spot a trend.
But do you network with each other to alert each other to a trend that might be happening in your neighborhood, or?
We do. It's not necessarily formal, but part of it is that unless if another, let's say, adjacent agent was a victim of a crime, if they don't take the proactive effort of contacting me, I don't know that it exists. However, that shoplift, burglary, robbery was reported to OLCC.
How much are agents able to form a formal networking group to apprise other agents of these issues? And what have the agents done specifically to meet some of the concerns?
Well, we do have a formal networking group. It's the Association of Liquor Agents, and we do talk amongst each other. We have monthly board meetings, and we invite other agents, and we discuss these issues.
Like a neighborhood watch for the liquor stores. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that we have that.
Well, that's what I was going for. I mean, it sounds like you're asking the commission to formalize some sort of, informing all the agents when there's a robbery or such, but it sounds like Executive Director Marks was indicating that we get some of that information, not all of it, and it's not in a timely manner to inform everyone. Is that true?
On liquor stores, we get it quicker because the agents report to us, and we set up a call-in line, thanks to Dan's work and focus on this, to be able to get those reports quickly. We have put in place policies or practices, I wouldn't say policies because of this, rapid rise in crime like this that, we've been dealing with. How do we manage it too with Dan and our agents and get better at our side of the equation on that? So while there's a general community responsibility there and their private businesses that they want to sell part of their valuation on, us being able to look at that, be more ubiquitous communicators, work with the city. We had this problem, it was across retail, it was with our marijuana shops, it was with liquor stores, it was in retail generally, right, where we've seen this trend. And, we've worked to more proactively, I think, pair law enforcement that's overburdened with this. So we have taken the initiative to compile the files for law enforcement and the evidence so that it's all sitting there. So when they do get around to the case, that the information is packaged together for them to look at. And we've been doing that work proactively now since this trend has gone forward. But we don't have regular, we do have the calls. We got regular things in our contracts that we must do in relationships, but we can probably improve what we do with the agents, no doubt about it.
So when an agent does file a shoplift, burglary, or robbery claim, that liquor is relieved to the agent. So it is the state losing both assets and an opportunity for tax revenue. And that's really my point, is that I get the sense that the state and the agency doesn't perceive itself as a victim the same way that agents directly do. The state earns revenue on the product over 3 times faster than we do. We need some assistance. What that looks like, I think, is open for discussion, and I'm hoping to move forward on that.
It's so funny, it's not funny, Commissioner Rebel in the conference room before we started said, I'm gonna bring up this issue. So you've been quiet on it. I want to hear from you.
The ex-cop. Heresy, I am less concerned with what the state makes than I am about the dangers that you are now facing. I am very frustrated when I hear prosecutors cry poverty. They don't have enough money to prosecute because it's less than $1,000. It demeans quality of life for the organization and for your employees. I don't know how much we can do to get law enforcement to look at, these shoplifting gangers who run to a store, no matter what it is, 5, 6, 100 people at a time. And I don't expect your team members to stand in front of somebody that's 6'6" and weighs 285 pounds because he has a case of liquor on both arms and say, stop, you don't want to do that. But I want to keep this conversation going, and you can call her for the one committee, but you can call me for the other committee as it relates to how we can work with you. I never like it when certain newspapers around the Portland metropolitan area has better information out to the public than we do. And those graphs, that's what I'm talking about. So I was surprised by this information. And I want to keep it in the forefront of the commission. And as your team decides how you want to move forward, I'd like to be part of that. And that's about as politically correct as I can be at this point.
One thing that was discussed informally before the start of the meeting was a proposal that the legislature should make shoplifting or, robbery, I think would already be a felony, but shoplifting, because it is a state asset, that should be a felony regardless of the dollar value.
You're barking up the
You're
wrong.
gonna have to push back.
Listen.
On that one, when you're talking about, because this same, the reason why is because you're gonna have advocates who are gonna say, excuse me, because it's state money, it should be a higher level of a penalty as opposed to, your back room being broken into. So that's gonna be really tough pushback. Also, we're at a point in this state and other states, I imagine, is that they're trying to drop the level of penalties for certain different crimes that are out there. And so come back with another idea.
Yeah, let me get into something. This is gonna be a soapbox of mine for the next year and a half, so I might as well bring it up right now. I reacted the way I did to your suggestion. There is right now in this state, which is probably the worst state in the United States today, of the unbalance between defense counsel and public defenders. We are atrocious. And until we equalize the defense counsel with public defenders, that $1,000, misdemeanor, breaking a window, the prosecutors are gonna have no choice but to dismiss it because there's no public defenders. The smartest thing we can do in this state, and that's why I'm on my soapbox on this, and I'm gonna try to do as best as I can on it. The smartest thing we can do is to find the funding for public defenders so that we can get back on track again. If you want to go after those shoplifters, you can do it much better if you have public defenders that are going to be there so that it can happen. People are screaming and yelling all over the state, especially in Portland, about the fact that somebody throws a rock through a window and the guy gets off with $100 fine. And that's pretty disgusting. But the prosecutor has no ability to do anything else because there's no public defenders. So if we're gonna find money in any place, let's find it for the public defender so we get the system back on track again and we can go after that person. It's frustrating.
Chair Rosa.
It really is, and Commissioner Revelle and I both reacted the same way to it. He's in charge of this issue. He'll pick 2 other people and let me know what you want to do with it.
I need people who are nicer than me.
Well, you pick 2 others.
Chair Rosenbaum. Chair Rosenbaum, if I may make a not politically correct statement, but then I can. We could add a 10-cent surcharge in every single bottle that we sell.
Or a nickel.
Or a nickel. Okay, we can cut it in.
We're gonna have to find a solution.
That's, yeah. And also, the data that Dan presented to you, I need to emphasize a point there is that is reported.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I know I have experienced it myself, and when we do the cycle counts and all that, and it's typically, we're missing 90% of what is not reported. And that burden of those 90% missing, because I cannot be compensated unless I can prove that here is the perp, here is the police report, and please compensate me. But that 90% unreported, because I don't know, I can't catch everybody. And that falls on squarely on the burden on the shoulders of the liquor agents. And the sad part of that is that we have to actually compensate it 100%. And that's the point Dan was trying to make. And then we get 9% commission back on that. So I know it is a social, it's breaking down of the social fabric here, what we are talking about, because little theft, we just had somebody walk out with it. $10 bottle. $10 in context of everything is nothing, but it shows you where this social fabric of our society is heading. Well, and we do need to do something.
And needless to say, whatever solutions are going to be done through the legislature, not us.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, I completely understand that, and that's always been my stance on it, that it is. We need legislative help, and whether that is going to happen or not is.
Well, before legislative help, as Salim mentioned, when we do the annual liquor audit and it results in a shortage, agents understand that we have to make up that shortage. Right now, there's an opportunity that you have to qualify for based on some inventory management and other factors, your performance. but you can get up to a 40% discount of retail to make up that shortage. 2 years ago, during the height of 2020 and when my store was burglarized 5 times, I made a request that we make that 40% discount unqualified, because I'm concerned I can't make the metrics due to the high shortages. But as a comparison, if there's a transportation claim by the trucking companies and they break a bottle, they get charged cost. We get charged 60% if you can meet the criteria.
More discussion.
Steve?
I just want to make a point. Jason Hansen just informed me again, and I was aware of this. There is a Tri-County Metropolitan Area Task Force that's been formed, has prosecutors on it, defense, law enforcement, retailers, looking at how to balance this issue. Jason Hansen represented us at the represented us or attended
Well, yeah,
the last meeting.
their first meeting this week,
Were there any public defenders there?
they all were there.
Good.
I'd be happy to share my notes from the meeting if that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
Some business owners in the downtown area have joined together and they pooled resources to hire security. I'm not trying to burden you further, but I'm sure you probably considered that. Security guards, which are actually hard to come by also, but yeah.
And expensive.
Yeah.
Right, so then you get to the point of, whether it is worth spending the dollars to stop the losses.
I was just asking.
No,
'cause like,
yes, we have, yeah, especially for, I'm, I shouldn't say fortunate, but I am fortunate that I'm down in the valley and, being in Corvallis and Albany, it is an issue, but not as much of an issue. But then my other store in Springfield, so if you look at the data, and Commissioner Wall would appreciate that, between the 3 stores, the highest losses, the most shoplifting and all that is in the Springfield store. And that's still nothing compared to what's happening here in the Portland metro area.
Okay, Commission, for the record, Jason Hansen, Director of Compliance with OLCC. So I did attend a task force meeting. It was the inaugural meeting that's been organized by the Oregon Retail Crime Association of Oregon. I believe that association formed in 2019. Was not a part of the central table, but just kind of a fly on the wall to hear about what's going on. Their first meeting was this week. Organizations putting this together: Northwest Grocery Association, Oregon Business and Industry, and several other groups are convening. So my note included representation from Fred Meyer, Target, Albertsons, Safeway, Zupans, Home Depot, Lowe's, Nike, Walgreens, eBay, Amazon, and many more industries looking at retail crime across the state. Law enforcement agencies from the Tri-County area, city and county, all the DAs were present as well, and a couple of tech associations and labor unions. It's a pretty diverse group that has come together with an opening remarks from Attorney General Rosenblum, who I don't know if she's the one who initiated this, but she was present in the beginning. So the goal for right now is a once-a-month meeting through January with goals to include evaluating legislative options, as already been discussed here. A placeholder bill exists for 2023. Also looking at different ways to do interjurisdictional partnerships and deterrent best practices. So what was presented on Tuesday were stores presenting some of their experiences, things that have been happening over the last couple of years, similar to what our retail stores are seeing. And my takeaway from that meeting is that smash and grab incidents way more brazen than what has been experienced as a norm. Traditional approaches to put high value items in the back or make it more difficult to come by are not helping. Putting them behind glass, locked cases, shopping carts that have a GPS device that will lock up when you leave the store if they didn't go through the proper checkout. Those things that traditionally do deter the activity, they're not having the impact that they used to. In many cases, and we've watched some videos, some of these activities, these thefts occurred right in front of staff, right in front of store associates, security staff, that were, of course, in many cases are now directed not to intervene, but they're there to witness and document, which is really the best approach given the brazenness of the offenders. They have really no regard for public property or people. To target some specific examples, significant increase on assaults to store associates. Stores are reducing the amount of product they put on shelves, so there's less value in the offender to expect what they can walk away with. So you might see that when you're out shopping. You don't see the shelves stocked like they normally would be. Many pictures of offenders walking out with shopping carts full of Legos is a high dollar item, 80% turnaround from the value of the product in the illegal market. In many cases, Legos are out of stock because they're stolen as soon as they're stocked. So people are tracking when stocked and when shelves are being stocked. Cart pushouts are more and more common. So again, people walking in, filling their entire cart full of goods and just walking right out the store. Again, we saw many videos where you see the cart lock up as soon as they get into the kind of sally port of the store, and then they just pull everything out of the cart and take off. Target security policy that they are hands off. The fencing operations, which are basically, undercover illegal operations outside of the stores where people are selling stolen goods, is a big problem that law enforcement is seeing all over the place. Let's see, law enforcement response really, engaged as much as they can be, but as has been discussed, their focus here in their world is level 1 and 2 crimes. And unfortunately, property crimes don't meet that severity. So they just have a lack of response, a lack of ability to do what they'd like to do. Resources are down. The district attorney's office, resources are down. Washington County and Clackamas County are conducting retail crime missions, so they're doing what they can. And I think this started in Clackamas County, maybe, I don't recall which, but they developed groups to specifically address retail crime. They're sharing interjurisdictionally as much as they can. They're very much partnering together in this work. The cases aren't difficult to prove. There's video, electronic records, social media. Yeah, it's out there. So it's not a matter of the difficulty to prove it. It's a matter of resources to spend on the time doing it. One of the things that they suggested, law enforcement, for example, was that it's super important to report the crime. And what they do see is people, because they aren't expecting a response, they just go ahead and accept that this is a part of doing business. So I'm not going to waste my time and energy to report it because I don't expect a response. And that's really unfortunate because, yeah, the timing of the response is really poor, but they are doing what they can with their resources. And when they can come around and deal with it, they do need that information. So they do need individuals to respond to events. Amazon is doing a lot of work around this. There's the public marketplaces is where a lot of these things are sold. And so there's partnerships with eBay, Amazon, eBay had representation there as well in the meeting. Really what's driving the crime, what was discussed often is drugs. And looking at the offenders that are competing or conducting this activity or people that have a need for a fix. And so their risk is little based on what they feel their need is. So they will do whatever it takes. They have not much to lose with these events. So that's my update at this point. The drug piece again, almost every booster either has counterfeit pills on them or has swallowed them because again, this is a very much drug-related crime, substance issue-related crime. So again, I'm not a part of the central table. I am trying to be a fly on the wall as I can be so I can report back to our groups and our responsibilities.
Good report.
Mr. Chairman, I just know, we're not the only state that's in this.
Oh, God, no.
We just, Chris and Brian and I were on consulting with Virginia Liquor Control on what they're doing and trying to see if they're doing things that we're not or we're doing things that they're not so that we could collaborate a little better. But one of the biggest emphasis I think we're focusing on it really is this larger retail embracing, this task force is really good development. To get a high level focus on what needs to get done. A lot of collaboration on this issue across the country.
Needs to be this, how do we deal with, we have to relook at how we deal with proving loss. And what the retailers, our licensees have to go through in order to get compensated for that loss. And that percentage needs perhaps to be open for discussion.
So, Jake, could you provide the agents with the direct contact information of the task force? So as soon as something, you know, like robbery, theft, or something, anything happens, that they contact and, you know, just start setting up a dialogue and a response, hopefully, you know, by these people. That might offer you some little bit of solace, at least, if nothing else.
Yeah, I'd be happy to make that connection. Thank you. We appreciate that. Another thing we could do is, earlier in the discussion, you were saying whether the agent group are communicating with each other or not. And I would say that any shoplifting incident or robbery or burglary is immediately within 24 hours reported to the commission. What I would suggest is, since this is what I would consider the central repository of the information coming in, agents may not, my neighboring agent may not know that I was broken into, but OLCC would know, and whoever is the district manager for that store, I think that would be a good point, because they would be updated on it and just blasting email out, hey, guess what, this just happened. So at least we have more timely information. And then we can take it from there. We have already started talking with other agents on best practices, and there was a nice piece of communication from the retail services about best practices. So we are trying to do, we're trying to get ahead of this, and it's very difficult because, like, they're saying it's so brazen that they literally just walk in, pick up, and leave. I have, in my one store, I've initiated this new policy because we recognize this one particular section was being hit more than anything else, and that was Hennessy. So we have a sign there, Hennessy is not out, it is available, please ask. And we are keeping it behind the counter. Now, how many items can I keep behind the counter? So it is not a solution, it's a patch that we are trying to do, because we recognize, okay, this is where we couldn't identify who stole it. That means now I'm responsible for making up to the commission at the full value. And so, like Commissioner Wall said, maybe we need to see how we can, but in the end, it's still, this is a problem that I don't think has a simple solution, because it's multifaceted, and the gentleman here was saying, a lot of it is drugs, and yes, so we do recognize that, and we do, when the customer walks in, look at, and unfortunately to say that you're profiling, but you are. We have to, because we look at somebody walking, okay, is this going to be a potential shoplifter? So, and if you're at that point, I just am sad to say that that's not the Oregon I knew when I moved here.
Well, if I could say one thing too, that one simple deterrent would be bottle locks. I've traveled around the country and went to stores, and every store has bottle locks on their liquor. And in my store in Kaiser, we've implemented bottle locks on high theft items like Hennessy and stuff, and it has been a deterrent. But in talking with the distributors and stuff, they don't want to provide that thing. So maybe should be a commission role, help us find a way to get bottle locks in the store. And that would be a good deterrent.
That's a good.
When you ask us to make rules, I kind of like for you to let us know what those rules were, because, we have two different family groups, and they say, well, when we make this rule, then they're mad at us for making that rule. But if you come to us with the rule, and then we say, this is a rule, we can say, oh, you told us to make that rule. So
Gotcha.
you give us that rules you'd like us to do,
Got it.
We'll jump right on that.
Cool.
But I'd also love to see you guys gather the information yourself, share the information with each of you that there, because we're only getting stuff that's reported. You guys know each other and can communicate with each other, those losses that are not reported, but it will give us information if you can compile that information before we get all of this. I mean, as we go along, moving forward together. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and actually some of that data is available here in the building, because when the auditors come and when they do a physical count versus what the commission thinks you should have, that discrepancy in between then is that unreported loss. In my case, in most of the agents, we do cycle count every month. And I think you'll find this humorous, is that anything that is missing that I can't account for, I ring it up and I'm the buyer. So I write a check for that amount. So even when the auditors come, they're not going to find those items missing, because I've already taken the corrective action and I have opened my pocketbook for that. So we can provide that as a proof, because I write a business check for that. So obviously my business check is being written for an unreported or unidentified loss. that
What
we
are you
have.
talking a year?
Last year, and like I said, I'm not here in the metro area, so I'm down. So my last year for my one store was $3,600.
3,600?
3,600.
Dan, you're in Portland. You have one of the biggest, most beautiful store. I love your Hollywood store. Where about were you?
I've ranged anywhere from 5,000 this most recent year to over 10,000. But like Salim said, that's kind of the net of me making up some of the shortages. And I tend not to do that. And that's a different discussion with the audit team, because I don't agree with some of the metrics in which we're asked to follow, because it tends to hide the overall loss.
That would be important information for us to help in this
Yeah.
process.
Well, in the meantime, I hope you make use of Jason's resource. I think that'll be a huge Band-Aid.
Right, right. And we can certainly, if allowed, be part of that group. So then we can offer a perspective on the liquor part, because from what I understand, the makeup of that task force or work group, liquor is not represented. And so it's mainly private retail businesses. And I think we would be a good piece, a component to be part of that group.
And I think over 200 private businesses would be allowed, if that's how you walk into the group. Hey, we represent over 200 private businesses, not just some little liquor
Right.
store.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we're 280.
So
285, I think, or so. And then you look at the retail, what we generate, And I think that's why Dan was trying to earlier make a point that, in the end, it is any reported loss or unreported loss. It's a theft of state property. So just like if I make an untrue statement to somebody who is not a law enforcement personnel, has a different context than making an unlawful or untruthful statement to a officer. Then the point I'm trying to make here is that there is a differentiation between the two. And so why should that differentiation be not applied to private property versus state property? In the end, what I have is state property. So any loss that is, it's a loss directly to every single citizen, because it's a loss. It's not a private loss. So it's another way of looking at this, that then if we can make the legislators understand that whatever money is flowing back into the general fund, these are the dollars that are slipping out that you're not getting. Good point.
So are you willing to be a representative on the task force? And if so, how does that happen?
I'll commit right now.
Well, how does that happen, Jason?
Well, I'm gonna make some contact with the
Well,
president
he
of the
has no-
association.
Jason can only recommend, but he has no,
Authority.
yeah, no.
I will connect the people.
We're not the big dogs in this.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
Anyways, we appreciate the opportunity of an open communication and dialogue. I'm very, very encouraged today with the feedback that I'm getting. And it has been, it's quite different. This is my first meeting, face-to-face meeting with since the pandemic. So being in front of a computer screen, and it's just not the same. There's just no body language. There's, some emotions, but still you can't transmit that. And so I do appreciate the opportunity. On another note, we have organized, meaning our association, have organized a trade show coming up in Portland next month on October 21st and 22nd. So we would be honored if the commissioners could attend.
Yeah. Last time I missed it.
In the Lincoln City one, yes. So this would really be a great opportunity for the commissioners to meet I call them your constituents, the agents who run the stores. He can meet them in an informal setting, have a one-on-one discussion rather than in a formal setting here, and I think that would be great. So Friday, Commissioner Rosenbaum has agreed to address the agents, and so has Executive Director Steve Marks. And
Yeah.
I encourage all of you to do come. So it's
I wish I could I'll be out of town, so I'm gonna make my apologies.
oh, I'm sorry.
Is anybody gonna come?
When is the
Marvin?
date?
October 21st, which is a Friday. So the
Matt?
Friday is just an evening dinner and social get together, and that's where we will make, just chat with the agents. And Saturday is the trade show. So the trade show starts at noon.
Yeah, Friday night
Okay.
is the time for us.
Yeah. So Friday night, that's where we would, because the trade show hasn't started, we can,
Where is this being held?
the Monarch Hotel Convention. Yeah. I would be happy to send the invite to Laura, and then she can forward it to
That would be nice.
all the commissioners.
You guys holding it, or
I'm sorry,
you guys are holding it, or?
we are holding it. Yes. This is the first one since that 2019 that we did in Lincoln City.
Yeah.
So, and we're expecting about 200 some agents and their staff to be there. So.
It's a great opportunity to connect. It really is.
Just a side issue, if I can jump, that this doesn't do with what you were talking about right now, but as a group, do you have buying power for your stores, or do you have such products as insurance or
Commissioner Doherty, so
plans or-
yeah, we do offer some of that. So we have preferred vendors, and they give discounts to our members. And so we have services like payroll services, human resources, telephone, internet, and
I've heard from some agents that they would love to see, and I don't even know it's available. You and I have had conversations about this. That whether there's some, because insurance is expensive, part of the process here, and not all losses are covered. And I don't know if you have the buying power to soften any of that or offer.
well, we have approached a couple of insurance companies to see if they would be able to provide us the group discount, and if we
Okay,
offered you
that's what
a list of 285 members. So far we have not been. Nobody has been receptive
Yeah.
in the insurance field. So
It's
an opportunity.
Yeah.
Don't be looking at me.
Well, it's been a long time since I've been in the insurance business. I used to go after these, but I think it's getting a tougher field out there.
Even like legal services. So, because agents obviously are, every 4 or 5 years or so, they are re-signing their contracts. I've been in business most of my life, and I've had businesses in the malls. I'm very, very good at negotiating with them. But most people are not, and that's where legal help kind of thing that you buy, okay, you get 5 hours of prepaid services, and then you can utilize that for whatever you may need or so. But you're absolutely right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Salim, thank you for all the hard work you've done, and gentlemen, thank you too. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
Do you have a term as president, or what do they do? Vote you in or out? How does that work?
I'm almost, I'm the longest serving, and I'm,
Well, stay there
thank
for a little
you.
while.
Thank you very much.
Bottle bill program, an update. Nathan, you're up. I just,
Well, good morning, Chair Rosenbaum, members of the commission. I've invited a few of the Bottle Bill team. To
good,
come
I
up
was
so
gonna
we could
say that.
introduce
Dylan?
So there's a few things that I wanted to do today. First was introduce the team, and we have some appreciation and celebration in order in honor of Becky Vogel here. But first, to my left here, Megan Johnson is a Bottle Bill specialist with the agency. Been here 5 months?
Yep.
5 months. Of course, you all know Becky Vogel, been with the agency 27 years.
Wow.
And Jim Helgett, who will be the new incoming Bottle Bill program manager and has been with the agency already for eight years.
Are you
Retail
replacing
services.
Dylan? Or
Becky. Becky. Yeah, so Becky will be retiring, and I just wanted to say, a few words. And we also have some partners from the Oregon Beveraging and Recycling Cooperative that also would like to say a few words if we have some time after this. So as you all know, the OLCC is responsible for administering Oregon's Bottle Bill program. And OLCC essentially ensures that manufacturers, distributors, and retailers comply with the requirements of the Bottle Bill, and approves the establishment of beverage container redemption centers. And Becky has submitted notice that she's going to be retiring at the end of the month. Becky has been running the Bottle Bill program since we got the position here at the OLCC. And this is her last commission meeting with us. We didn't plan it this way, but we also will be bringing some Bottle Bill rules to you all a little bit later, which is a major update that we haven't done in quite a while. So I just wanted to take a minute and reflect on Becky's career here. She started here with the agency in 1995 when she was a training analyst in the alcohol server education program, and immediately started traveling around the state, did over 30 in-person training events for server education classes. The following year, after that great work, she promoted to an inspector position on the statewide compliance team, where she conducted in-depth investigations, statewide field investigations, including some undercover observations and some minor decoy operations, investigating unlicensed events, that kind of thing. A few years later, she became a regional coordinator for Region 2, so Clackamas, Washington, Clatsop, Tillamook, and a portion of Multnomah County, and did a lot of review and assignment work of inspectors and licensed investigators. Then in 2001, and for the subsequent 16 years, Becky served as a case presenter in what is now the Administrative Hearings Division. And ever the dedicated and faithful public servant, she wrote change letters, presented cases at hearings in front of you all and your those that preceded you here, negotiated settlements, and made monthly presentations around compliance to the commissioners. When I first met Becky, she was a case presenter here when we were just getting the marijuana program started. And it also happened to be the same time the legislature was considering adding the Bottle Bill program manager position to OLCC. And at that point, she had her eye on that. And it became no surprise to any of us that had worked with Becky because of her deep expertise in the agency and strong relationships in the field with their field offices and investigative staff, that she was brought in to manage that role, which she assumed in 2016 and has been managing ever since. So, lots of changes have been made to the Bottle Bill program. In that time, she tackled a big non-compliance issue immediately that had been hanging out there, and it was actually an impetus behind creating the position. And at the time, I believe it was about an $80,000 fine that the commission levied, which was the largest, I think, at the time for a non-compliance related to bottle bill. And she oversaw major changes to the program, such as when the redemption value changed from 5 cents to 10 cents in 2017. And then many other beverage containers have been added over the years. And Becky's impact to the agency, it really extends beyond, just the work that's written in her position description. She's been quite the leader here at the agency. She served as the vice president of our local union here, as well as the blood drive coordinator for many years, which she's now passed on to Matt in Circular Communications. She's sewed lots of sock monkeys for various OLCC fundraise prizes. And many employees, including myself, can attest and rave about her crochet work. When my baby girl was born, Becky crocheted a beautiful little watermelon top for her. So having heard about her career path and leadership contributions, I don't think you'll be surprised to know that she was actually the first recipient of the Compass Award in November 2015, which Director Mark started using a compass that a relative gave him, and it's now a peer award that's passed around between employees. And I dug up something that Director Mark said at that time, because we keep excellent records here at OLCC. He said, Becky has always impressed me with her unflappable skill in handling her work of presenting cases and meting out sanctions for violation of our rules. Becky's energy, commitment, and integrity matches the standard of excellence we aspire to in our mission and our strategic plan. And I would like to add too, as Becky's final manager before retirement over the past 3 years, that to me, Becky exemplifies servant leadership. And the role of leaders in that model is to empower and guide those that work above, below, and beside them. Becky exemplifies that through and through in the way that she leads the team and in the way she works with our partners, like the Oregon Beverage and Recycling Cooperative and all of our licensees. Specifically, Becky, I've admired how you coach others in dealing with ambiguity, especially tricky situations, how to influence others without manipulating, how to use diplomacy and tact, regulating yourself and knowing how to solve a problem in a tense situation. And in all that you do, I've found that you really strive to model professionalism and integrity, and you inspire others on the PACE team to take initiative and to do great work. I find that when you model authenticity for the team and curiosity and open mindset when we're in hard-pressed problem solving, you create an environment where you invite others to do the same. So I thank you for that legacy that you leave here. And you have certainly earned a phenomenal retirement. I wish you the absolute best, which I hear will be filled with family time and perhaps some sailing adventures. Yeah. So with that, on behalf of the executive team, I do want to give you something that is small enough to put in your pocket if you choose to bring it with you on a sailing adventure. We have a challenge coin that's been created by the executive team for special recognition. And I want to present you with that in honor of all of your great service here.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if I can say anything at this point. Thank you all. It's been an honor to work here. The commission has been an environment where you could recreate yourself, which I did many times here, and grow and be your best self. And it's just totally been an honor to work here. Thank you very much.
One more thing, we're having a party for Becky later today. I'm challenged at making it, but I am going to try. But in case I don't, I decided I better do this now. And Nathan's went through the long litany of her career here. Becky always, I gave her the first Compass Award She exhibited, I think, what I stole from Dave Fromar, that we should aspire to be the finest agency that we could at what we do. And Becky exemplified for me striving to be the finest in everything she did. So I bought her a compass to take with her to help her say. I'll miss you professionally and personally.
Thank you. When you gave me that first compass, I really wanted to keep it. So- Thank you.
Yeah, I'll get you handed off a video.
Okay, stand by.
Or why don't you take one too? So
Yeah.
Thanks, Lou.
I'll send it to communication. You just get all about
I have to say, Nathan, that was the sweetest tribute I've heard.
Oh.
No, really, it was just so endearing watching the two of you.
Well, it was very easy to write, given how phenomenal Becky has been over the years. And we do have some partners from OBRC who I think would also like to say a few words. If we could have them come up for just a few seconds here, and Jim and Megan, if y'all don't mind, we'll give them our seats here.
Use it. Thank you for coming.
Oh, of course.
Sorry,
Well, good to see you all. I'm Jules Bailey. I'm Executive Vice President with Oregon Beverage Recycling Cooperative, and
I'm Eric Chambers. I'm the External Relations Director at OBRC.
a very bittersweet day for us. And OBRC, as I think all of you know, we are the industry side of the bottle bill. We are the not-for-profit cooperative that runs all of the operational aspects and is stewarding Oregon's bottle bill. We process about 2 billion containers a year. We hand out, you can do the math quick on 10 cents, about $200 million worth of refunds to Oregonians, Oregon families. We have 900,000 account holders, 500 employees, over 2,000 different retailers that we work with and pick up from a fleet of nearly 100 trucks. But the only number that matters is one. There's one person at the OLCC who has made an enormous difference in this program throughout the years. And Becky is the kind of person, I'm going to make a sports analogy. She's the referee. There's a lot that's happening out on the court, but without a strong referee, it all turns into chaos. But people don't always recognize the referee for what the referee does in the game. And what you want out of a referee is someone who's fair, firm, and fast. She's making the right call every time. She's doing it in a firm way that gets the job done. There's no late whistles. She's right on top of it, and she makes sure everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing within the system and making tough calls that she makes look easy. But as I thought about this, I actually thought maybe the referee wasn't quite the right analogy, because over the time that Becky has been in this position, the bottle bill has gone through enormous change from 2016 through today. We had the change from a nickel to a dime. We had container expansion. We've had a lot of fun talking about milk. So much fun talking about milk. And everything in between. And the system has changed dramatically since 2016, and Becky has been there to really be a shepherd. And I think that's really the appropriate analogy for her, is not the referee, but the shepherd. And we got a lot of sheep that are out there, and they tend to wander off. Becky just gently but firmly brings them back into the fold, and then another sheep goes off, and she kind of brings them back in. She's got a firm but fair shepherd's hook. And that's what it takes to run the best bottle deposit system in the nation, is somebody like Becky. And Jim, sorry, you got big shoes to fill. We're really excited to work with Jim in this role going forward, but we will definitely miss you, Becky. And so we want to present to you this commemorative bottle. I'll read you the inscription with it. This special edition commemorative bottle from the 2022 Hidden Bottle Hunt is presented to Becky Vocal in recognition of all the hidden work Becky has done behind the scenes over the years, ensuring that Oregon's bottle bill remains the best program of its type in the nation. The Oregon Beverage Recycling Cooperative extends our deep gratitude for Becky's service to the public, helping one of Oregon's most prominent environmental legacies continue to thrive. And we wish her much enjoyment during her well-deserved retirement.
Thank you.
Can I ask for a hug?
There's so much that you would come,
Oh.
and this is prize.
And the one we can't present at a public meeting will be a full one.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for the
you all very much.
You are obviously well-loved and well-received by everybody. It's very impressive. Thank you. And we done with this part?
We are, yeah.
Can I ask a personal favor? Would somebody send me some labels for my,
Here.
please? I've tried 3 times. I can't do it anymore. So, thank you.
Thank you all.
You promise? I desperately need them. Oh, that was very nice. Budget update, our very competent Chief Financial Officer, Kayleen, are you, there you are, Colleen. I can't pronounce.
Good morning, Chair Rosenbaum and members of the commission. For the record, my name is Colin Nealand, and I am the Chief Financial Officer, as you all know, for the agency. Very happy to be talking with you this morning and going over what will begin to be a regularly quarterly financial services update that we'll be providing to the commission. And so there's 3 things that I'm going to be looking to talk with you all about. What you see in front of you, it'll actually be the 3rd thing that we'll be discussing today, which is just a quick update on what we are seeing as far as liquor sale revenues and where they have been over the last 12 months. And then is also around liquor sales by volume, which is on the 2nd page of that update. But first, before we got into that, I wanted to give you a quick update as a follow-up to the conversation we had back in July regarding the agency request budget for the next biennium starting July 1 of 2023 and going through June 30 of 2025. The agency submitted our agency request budget in the first part of August to the DAS Chief Financial Office. Which works closely with the governor's office as they review agency request budgets. We don't expect to have a more formal update to the commission until we receive what the governor's budget will look like. And of course, everyone is waiting to see the results of what the election will turn out to be. And the time frame that we have heard from the DAS Chief Financial Office is that the governor's budget could be out as early as December 1st, but very likely later than that, and could be as late as the first part of February. So it's a rather wide range of time, and that's not unexpected when there is a transition from one governor to the next. And so that will be something that once we have that information, we will definitely come back to the commission and share that update of what the governor's budget looks like as far as what will be recommended to the legislative session coming up here in 2023. The other thing I wanted to share an update with the commission is related to our current biennium budget. We currently have a budget request being considered by the legislature, and OLCC Financial Services has been working closely with the DAS Chief Financial Office and the Legislative Fiscal Office related to update our other funds expenditure spending authority. And what this is relating to is what we are currently forecasting is roughly a 5% increase in revenues that we are expecting to see in the current biennium. And what that means is that we're also expecting to see an increase in some of our costs that are driven as a result of higher sales. And those costs that we're expecting to see are higher costs for bank cards. We are expecting to see an increase there of about 2.6 million. increase in agent compensation related to those higher sales of around 11.9 million, and then also an increase in our distillery compensation costs of 3.7 million. So in total, we have a budget request in front of the Legislative Emergency Board Committee right now for roughly $18.2 million. And the first hearing on this was yesterday afternoon. The DAS Chief Financial Office and the Legislative Fiscal Office both made a recommendation to that committee to approve the agency's request to increase our spending authority. And the General Government Subcommittee that heard the request also made the recommendation to the full emergency board that will be meeting tomorrow afternoon to approve our request to increase our spending authority. And one thing I wanted to really highlight for you is that when we're looking at the need for this increase in spending authority, where it was really coming from is from the fact that we are expecting to see higher revenues, which is what we'll talk about here in just a moment. And those higher revenue estimates are actually driven mostly by product price increases and by consumer choice of higher end products. It is not necessarily driven by higher volume of the quantities being sold. And the good news relating to all this is as we're seeing an increase in estimated revenues, what we are also anticipating is the estimated benefit once all of the costs have been paid to the state general fund and to cities and counties is right now we are estimating an increase of an additional $22.2 million that will be transferred to the state general fund, cities and counties over and above what was originally estimated back in 2021. So that is some of the news we wanted to share with you, both on where we are currently waiting to see where we go for the governor's budget recommendation for the next biennium, and also where we are in the current budget cycle. And then that is a great segue into the information that you see in front of you today, which really shows what we have seen as far as liquor sales in dollars over the last 12 months. What you can see there is we've seen in dollars roughly about $828 million, which is on par for what we were estimating to be slightly in excess of 1.6 billion for the biennium. And what we're seeing as far as a percentage increase is you can see that it's roughly about a 5% increase in sales related to dollars that we've been seeing in the current biennium over these last 12 months. And then Laura, if we could go to the next part of that presentation. And so then the last information I want to leave with you is, and this is information that was shared with the DAS Chief Financial Office and Legislative Fiscal Office and the Legislative Committee as well, is that because while we are seeing a higher amount of sales related to those higher product prices or consumer choices and they're choosing higher end products, what we have seen over the last 12 months from August through July of this year is that case sales have only been up slightly over that time frame. And so what we're really seeing is that increase in revenue is really not coming from an increase in volume, at least not a significant increase in volume, but more an increase in what we're seeing in for what prices items are being sold for or what items the consumers are choosing to purchase. And that really concludes the...
One quick question. Either way you look at both of those charts, what I see is that there's no correlation between the increase in interest rates in the country and the consumption of liquor. Is that true?
That is what we are seeing right now. That is something that we are continuing to evaluate. I think that is, what we see a lot in the news and hear from some companies, the Walmarts and those, is that they are seeing some consumer choices impact the items that are being sold. What we're seeing in the data that we have in front of us right now is we're not seeing that on our end. But we continue to evaluate that, and this current week is a good example of that. Every time interest rates are raised and other potential factors are happening in the macro economy, what we are trying to continue to analyze is, are we seeing that impact our business activities as the agency and across the state in this particular area, or do we continue to see things maintain the status quo?
And Mr. Chair and Colin, I think we've seen, if you look back through the data, through depressions, recessions, tough economies, liquor's been pretty much moves at 5% upward for the longest amount of time.
Yeah.
Very stable.
And that's my point, obviously. Colin, thank you. Go ahead,
My pleasure. So I appreciate your time this morning and happy to answer any other questions, or if not, I'm sure you'll all be happy to move on to the next agenda item.
The floor is open, commissioners. Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Colin, did you have to cover, sorry, I had to step out of the room, your appearance before Ways and Means E-Board yesterday?
Yes, so I did talk about that. The E-Board recommended that our $18.2 million spending authority increase in our current biennium budget was that they recommended that, and it's moving forward to the full emergency board tomorrow afternoon. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Next item, warehouse update.
Good morning.
You're on deck, Mr. Superstar.
Not I. Well, thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Chris Mayton, Distilled Spirits Program Director. I'm going to give you an update on the warehouse, which is very brief. Good news is everything's still progressing. We're still working with the architects on design specifications for the building. We're getting really close to a 3D look at that building. The new building should be in a couple more weeks, so we're getting close. We've also been touring some other site locations for construction. We went to Columbia's headquarters last week. The week before that, we went to Oregon City's Police Department, which was fairly new, just to look at the different type of material construction they're using. We're also working continuously with the CMGC RFP. Hey, we have Peter driving. We're still working on the RFP for the CMGC, working with DOJ on getting that finished. There is a potential for a delay in that I'll update you on in a couple of weeks once I find out more about that, but that could stall us a little bit. And then I think last but least, the program itself is just moving at full speed ahead. In fact, we're moving a little bit faster than I think some of the processes that we're concerned about, which is I think bogus sectors with the DSSC project, which is the modernization of our IT, warehouse management system, ERP, POS, whether that's going to be in line with when the building's finished. So those are some concerns that are coming up. And then along with the thing I talked about with the CMGC, with the shortages that are happening at DOJ and people and resources, and for them to expedite what's going on, we're starting to see that we might be delayed several months there. So those are concerns that we're having that we're starting to mitigate. I'd also like to give a couple comments on what the agents brought forth earlier, just so I can give you a little more context to it, if you don't mind, if you're all right with that, Steve. They mentioned their contract. We already have a new contract for sale. I'm sorry, let me specify. This is for the sale of their business. They talked about the independent side of their business, what I call beer, wine, cigarettes, Cheetos, and T-shirts. We have an agent that listed their store in Battle Creek that just finished its posting, that we made a change to that to allow them to use Valuation to get the net worth or the blue sky amount that they were asking for. So we're under a pilot program for that. We had 7 applicants for that business. So we're in the process. You're going to see that one soon. It's going to come to you next month. So we are longer in that process. So I wanted you to know that we've been working with them to get that ratified. Also, when they sell their business today or in the past, the liquor side, as you mentioned, Commissioner Molinas, is the only thing we really concern ourselves with. But we do have the inbound agent talk that you select has to negotiate with the outbound agent for their shelves, for their beer, their wine, their cigarettes, their coolers, the things that are non-related. So all we're really doing is adding language into the information sheet that says, hey, you should talk to the agent and get their business valuation and allowing them to sell it for whatever value they want. We've never prohibited that. On the store theft side, it's purely the same thing, because the issue is, as was brought up earlier, it's between our agency and their independent business. So when they call us and ask us, what can we do? Well, there's not much we can do.
Right.
It's their business. They need to, whether they put turnstiles in or get security guards or lower their gondola heights or move their inventory behind locked cabinets, those are all things that they do. We as an agency do collect that data. We started in 2017, 2018. We're one of the only states that does that. So we are gathering that data, and then we do share that with other agencies. One of our district managers, Brian Aker, he's part of that worker group that Jason Hansen talked about. He's a member of it. So he shares that information. That's how we get organized crime solidified within the state. So we are actively participating in that program as well. As far as what we can do, they did bring up a good point. It's about inventory evaluation when they lose their inventory. One thing that they did not mention was that if they do have a POS rate, I think it's, Brian, 7% or less? 7.5% or lower, meaning if they fix their transactions at the POS level and their rate of theft is below 7.5%, then we'll refund them the difference of that 60%, which gives them everything back that they would lose. The question is are they keeping good track of their business? And if you've been a retailer, you know that 7.5% is egregious. I was in the retail private sector for 25 years, and if I was over 1.5%, maybe 2%, I was looking for a new job. So you had to be tight. Our shrink as a state with the liquor stores is 0.03%. So it's very small, very small. In fact, all the numbers that they showed you was only $81,000. $81,000 on 1.6 billion over the last 2 years. It's very small. So this is why it's not getting the attention that they want. But I'm not dismissing the problems that they're having, because it's not the liquor. The liquors are very small cost. It's the car driving through the front door that broke all the windows, that broke the doors, that they stole the ATM, and it scared all the employees and it kept them away. And it's
human.
It's absolutely, it's major. There's just not a lot that our agency can do to change the position that they have. Although we are working with them, we're listening to them, and we're collecting the data that we can get so we can share it with law enforcement. But I do believe the issue is bigger than what we are. And then last but not least, as our CFO just mentioned, same numbers I gave last month for our distilled spirits program. We were at 5.5% in sales. The volume was down 1.2%. We're a recession-proof business, I like to say, because people drink when they're happy and they drink when they're sad. So interest rates don't necessarily affect our business. What we try to do is make sure that we offer a diverse selection, make it available for our consumers, and make sure we do it responsibly and not serve minors and not overserve for the on-premise purchaser. So with that being said, that's my update. Sorry, I just wanted to add a couple more bullets because
Any questions?
That was helpful.
If I may, for the record, Chairman, Commissioners, Brian Fleming, Director of Retail Services. The 60-40 split was designed, I actually helped with Salim years ago, was designed to, when you operate your business, we don't have a system, you probably know that says at cost value if you lose it. So the 60-40 split was built that, think about a $10 bottle is a little over 110% markup. So you'd be good on that end. But when you get into the high end, and we're having a lot of this in terms of that $200-300 bottles, we're actually would be below cost compensation. So that was what was done, I think 2010 or 12, where 60-40 split was for everyone so that we protect ourselves, yet we also protect them. And that's primarily theft. A lot of it can be in that lower margin because as the price goes up, the margin goes down. So just a little clarification on the 60-40 split.
Thank you.
So,
Chris, before you go, one of the biggest roadblocks to growth in this industry is the warehouse situation. And we're immensely proud of the job that Oregon is doing. I mean, you know, I'd probably be the first one to tell you you're doing something wrong, and you're not. I mean, this is really quite impressive with all of the problems that we've had. The reason I bring it up is I just came from a National Association meeting, and there's other states that are very much cognizant of what we're doing here. By way of illustration, Mississippi is just starting their warehouse operation. Ohio is looking at it. There's other states. I gave them a blank authority to pick up the phone and call you guys and come out here and sit down with us, because the information and the experience that you have now is going to be invaluable for some of our counterparts across the country. So don't be surprised if you're going to be doing some entertaining in the next couple of months or a year. Thank you.
You're welcome, Chair. It's not just me, though. I come with a great team behind me.
We know that.
Just so we're aware of, there's a lot of people involved, and we are working with NAPCA. They've instituted that warehouse group because there's a lot of states in the same situation as us. And as I tell Brian and Nikki all the time, you know, our responsibility is to make sure we keep driving that revenue for the state and do it responsibly. And in our warehouse, when you run out of space, you've got to mitigate the way you do that every day almost. And Nikki is juggling elephants back there to make that happen. And Brian and his retail stores are delivering. So,
but there's a difference between working with the employees in NAPCA and working with the chief of NAPCA in front of the state. I mean, there's two different operations.
You are right.
Sure, Rosamond. So before you leave, can you talk a little bit about Senator Sanchez, who jumped all over me in the New York Times?
Sure.
Some information you're going to be providing for me so I can give it to the senator as to coupons, Sazerac.
Yes, that's an ongoing and developing situation. As you know, price floor was enacted by this commission late last year, October. And as of recently, we've had a manufacturer that has been using rebates that's allowed legally, putting them on their bottles. And that rebate would essentially drop the price below the minimum unit price or floor price that's been set up. Now, let me clarify, just make sure I'm put it on the record. When they make the sale at the POS, the state's not losing any money. It's not below minimum unit pricing. It's actually above. And the rebate that's given is given by the manufacturer, not by the state, so the money's not lost. However, at the end, it does entice a consumer to buy that product because they know the net effect at the end will be less. And the optics are terrible with it. So with that being said, I have reached out to that manufacturer and had a conversation with them. And on a parallel path, besides that conversation, I've also started to revamp or update the bailment and price agreement that we have with manufacturers. That bailment agreement and price agreement that our distribution center does with manufacturers is in the hands of DOJ right now, and they are reviewing it. It is about 3 to 6 weeks out. Once that gets approved, which I expect it to be approved, there'll be some teeth in what we can do if they do that again, and they won't be allowed to. At the same time, on a third path, I've been working with our policy division to set up the stage for possible revisions of an OAR that we currently have that have the rebate and coupon rules around it. But and those would have to support the bailment agreement should it be changed. So these are more things that are 6, 9, 12 months away. But I think our best approach is to talk to the manufacturer that was doing it and explain the circumstance. And just to give you an umbrella look at it, the product that they put the coupon on has been down about 5,500 cases a month. And they're not getting any better. It's about a 1.2 million a month loss on that SKU that they use that. And the redemption rate was only 1.2%. So they have no tactical or strategic reason to keep doing it. So I'm asking them to remove it. And there's a lot of manufacturers ask a lot of the OLCC and things that we can do. We're in the process of revisiting our 1 liter program and setting some parameters around that. And they're one of the manufacturers that has been anxiously waiting to get in. And I think that between their decision to stop doing it, which they haven't made yet, we're meeting first week of October. But if they do that, the timing will allow them to come in with that 1 liter. That will help them compete against their lost sales that they've been experiencing. So it's kind of work together, play together type of deal. And we're there, and we do that very gently. But at the same time, we're running these other parallel paths to make sure we get the laws in place and the rules in place so that we can hold people accountable if they decide not to.
Well, you get diplomatic in your old age. I'm impressed.
So
Chair
the
Rosenberg.
it was, we come out that same week with television advertising. Know how much you're drinking.
Yeah, rethink the drink.
Rethink the drink. She comes up and says, we're not rethinking the drink. We're trying to get people to drink more because OLCC is giving coupons to get prices. And I'm saying, what? So, and then someone said, look at it, read this from the New York Times. And it's like, we were blindsided.
And in case you didn't know, Chairman and Commissioners, rebates do not have to be approved by the OLCC. By rule, they're allowed to put them on the box. And in fact, they're put on the box at the manufacturer and boxed in a cardboard box. We don't even know they're on the bottom until they're taking them out and putting them on the shelf. They don't have to ask for permission to do that.
This allows me to call Senator Sanchez and says, we didn't do it. And we're taking steps to make sure that it's not done again. But there are steps we have to take in order to be in compliance.
And Mr. Chair, I'd just add, because I knew of Chris's work in the background and we made that decision that in my testimony yesterday to the legislature, it's unequivocal that the minimum would be the minimum and we're going to use all our tools to get us there. So.
Steve, your director of the warehouse operations is getting very diplomatic in his old age.
Mr. Chair, if I may, you used to comment that I'd make one heck of a politician. He's doing a pretty nice job.
He is. I'm impressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And I'm gonna start referring to Chairman Matt and you, it's there in Portland.
Mr. Chairman, before you move on, I just want to highlight what Chris said. Those delays in getting contracts approved, getting through procurement, and given the revenue lost from us, and delays, we're going to have to make sure that we highlight this issue for the legislature, for the leadership, for the governor's staff. I don't know that they'll be able to do anything about it, right? People are hard pressed, but I want to make sure that they know those consequences are on the backside. We're losing months of time for our spring opening. We may lose a year if this doesn't, if we don't get a higher priority or, the bottleneck and those reviews and processes move forward.
Well, Steve, that's your job with the legislature. We're counting on you to do it.
I might have you sign that letter to the speaker, president, and co-chairs of ways and meetings.
But that's your job. That's why you get paid the big bucks.
I just want to make them aware, right? They need to know that, financial consequences to the state.
Yeah, no,
I'm not saying that they'll be able to effectively respond. You can't press a gas pedal and get more juice out of this engine right now. It's really tough across the board.
Brian, you're up.
Chair Rosenbaum, Commissioners, again, for the record, Brian Fleming, Director of Retail Services, was touched by Becky's retirement, but today we have a long-term agent in Cannon Beach that passed away unexpectedly. I knew Dave long ago when I first started. He was a bit cantankerous when we first met, but honestly, we developed a fantastic relationship. He was passionate about his community. Was the first to partner with us to create a satellite liquor store location in Cannon Beach. We went on to do one also in Sun River, Oregon, that we made to permanent because of the residents at the marketplace didn't want to come down to the marketplace. We had a small satellite. So Dave was instrumental, did some testimony here years ago about it, passed the rule. So Today, we're going to honor Dave, almost 24 years as the liquor agent in Cannon Beach. His son, Paul Pastor, has taken over the business upon his passing. Brian Aker, the district manager, worked with Paul a great deal, was a good friend of Dave Pastor as well. He was a heck of a guy to know. But anyway, so back to the business. He's been running this store for 2 years. We usually bring these at the 1 year mark, but Paul had bigger things planned after his dad. They relocated the store. The reason for this store relocation, it was in the south end and you couldn't drive through town, so created the satellite. Commissioner Revolt, I think, was here. Today, we've moved down into the center of town. We've increased parking. And so Paul has put that together with his partner in the store, Michael. I believe it's Michael, right? Who is assisting with it. So today, we're here for the spouse-child appointment to make permanent for Cannon Beach Liquor Store. Remember, this liquor store is so seasonal. Right now is when it's time to make the hay for the winter. About $1.8 million now. Did prior about 1.5, 1.6. So happy to answer any questions. We do require all spouse-child participants in person. He made the drive this morning, so thank you very much. Any questions?
Well, for $1.8 million, it's worth the drive, isn't it?
Very much is.
Any questions?
Sorry for your loss.
Sorry for your loss, and thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
I'd like to say thank you also to all of you. It's been an honor to work for the state and help my dad for many years with the liquor store and help many other liquor stores with my work. And it feels great to be here and be a part of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And been writing procedures also to help make sure I'm staying online, operation procedures for closing day, closing week, closing month, and put it to where everyone in my store will know exactly what we're all doing and not to be one thing over the other and make my store look beautiful. Not as good as Hollywood, but close.
Commissioner?
I move to appoint Paul Pastor as the permanent agent of store 1018 Cannon Beach effective October 1st, 2022.
Commissioner Curran?
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty?
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Japon Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Molinas?
Yes.
Commissioner Amal?
Yes.
Chair Rosenbaum?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Brian, aside from this, we rely on you on all of these. I mean, this is your bailiwick, and when you talk about a spouse-child appointment, the input that you and staff gives us is critical to it. I mean, you know that, we know that, and we trust you on your judgment on these things. Any comments from any of the commissioners? I appreciate it.
Chair, if I may also, if you always in the materials, what else are you doing for me, or the commitment to the store that's incorporated with your appointment. So we're always looking for and honestly, we usually get it easily because they're so excited to continue on a tradition or legacy of the family.
Well, in this case, I mean, it's just more than obvious you're qualified, and we appreciate it, and thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Like Chris, I don't do all this stuff. So Nadine, Brian, the whole district manager team, great team. And by the way, the bottle bill program manager was also recruited out of the proving grounds of retail services, Jim Helget. So, and he's going to do great for the bottle bill program.
Great. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be back.
Brian,
Good luck. Nicole, come on up. We're going to talk about the temporary rules and initial actions on it.
We sure are. Good morning, Chair
Good
Rosenbaum
morning.
and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Nicole Blase, and I am the Rules Coordinator with the OLCC. I am here to present 3 rulemaking actions for your consideration today. First up, we have the initial and temporary action for transfer of marijuana items between state and tribal licensees. Oregon Revised Statute 475C.521 enables the governor to enter into an agreement with the governing body of a federally recognized Indian tribe for the purpose of cross-jurisdictional coordination and enforcement of marijuana-related businesses licensed to conduct business on tribal trust land by the governing body of the federally recognized Indian tribe. OLCC rules do not align with an agreement between the state and a federally recognized Indian tribe with regard to the transfer of marijuana items. OLCC proposes to adopt a rule to provide for the transfer between an OLCC licensed marijuana business and a marijuana business licensed to conduct business on tribal trust land, and to allow for laboratory sampling and testing of marijuana items. And staff or I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Staff? I'm gonna hold my powder for now. This is just a normal way of operating it. What's coming later is a whole different issue, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, somebody make a motion, please.
Sure.
Commissioner Rovell, I should say Chairman Rovell. Go ahead.
Never. I move to temporarily adopt a OAR 845-025-7725, effective September 23rd, 2022 to December 31st, 2022. To initiate rulemaking on this action and to hold a rulemaking hearing at staff's discretion.
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Dupont Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Miletus,
Yes.
Commissioner Law,
Yes.
Chair Rosenbaum.
Yes. That was easy enough.
Excellent, thank you. I will move on. The next item is a final action for wine label designation of nested American viticultural areas. Senate Bill 829 passed in the 2019 legislative session. This bill was codified as Oregon Revised Statute 471.802 and imposed a certain wine labeling requirements related to nested American viticultural areas within the Willamette Valley AVA. In response to this legislation, the OLCC adopted OAR 845-010-0923 in December of 2020. However, the wine labeling requirements are not operative until January 1st, 2023. Since the rule was adopted, the OLCC and the wine industry members have identified rule clarifications, specifically changing references of brand label to wine label, and making clear that the rule applies to wine that is labeled on or after January 1st of 2023. Upon approval, OAR 845-010-0923 will become effective on September 23rd, 2022. And staff and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners?
It's an important rule.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, I need a motion.
Sure.
Commissioner?
I move to adopt OAR 845-010-0923, effective September 23rd, 2022.
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Dupont Porter.
Yes.
Commissioner Miletus,
Yes.
Commissioner Law,
Yes.
Chair Rosenbaum.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, and the last item is a final action for the 2022 bottle bill package. And I'm grateful to have Becky and the bottle bill team here today to walk us all through this proposal. The 2022 Oregon Legislature passed Senate Bill 1520, which directs OLCC to develop and provide signage to dealers describing the reasons a dealer may refuse to accept and to pay the refund value for empty beverage containers. The notices may contain additional information as determined by OLCC. Senate Bill 1520 also requires distributors who are not a member of a distributor cooperative and who sold more than 500,000 containers in Oregon in the previous calendar year to establish a program to provide redemption services in a distributor's distribution area that are comparable to services provided by a distributor cooperative. Redemption services may include, but are not limited to, operation of full-service redemption centers, drop-off service for beverage containers, retail pickup service, and any other services required by OLCC by rule. These provisions of Senate Bill 1520 become operative on January 1st, 2023. Upon approval, OAR 845-020-005, OAR 845-020-0031, OAR 845-020-0031, and OAR 845-020-0032 will become effective on January 1, 2023. Happy to answer any questions.
You're on a roll. I need a motion, please.
Chair. I
Commissioner?
move to amend OAR 845-020-005 and OAR 845-020-0035 and to adopt OAR 845-020-0031 and OAR 845-020-0032 effective January 1st, 2023.
Commissioner Kern,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Chacon Porter. Yes. Commissioner Melinas,
Yes.
Commissioner Riddle,
Yes.
Chair Rosenbaum.
Yes,
Excellent. Thank you, Chair Rosenbaum and
thank
Commissioners.
you.
Thank you.
We're going on to compliance. Let's separate the alcohol and the marijuana.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I can sit down.
We'll start with the alcohol stipulation settlement agreements.
Chair Rosenbaum, Commissioners, my name is Sarah Wolf. I'm a case presenter with AHD. We have several alcohol cases for you to review and consider the settlements. Let me know if you have any questions.
I have one question just to start off with. There's so many of these service permit cases we have in front of us. I'm assuming, being very cognizant of, I don't want to put undue burden on the owners, but the owners must know whether or not the person has a service permit. Don't they ask for it before they come on board, or?
They are supposed to.
So we have so many of them in front of us. Would anybody be interested in at least exploring increasing the penalty for that?
Well, don't.
Chair.
I mean,
I don't know if
Kiana, speak
increasing
on
the
it, I think.
penalty or if making,
Yes.
I'm not sure necessarily that I want to increase the penalty, but make sure that there's a stopgap. I think we talked before about sending out information maybe of when it
Yeah.
expires.
Well, that's my biggest question.
Yeah, I'm not, go ahead.
Well, so I have in part this question, and that is, how many of these are actually these service permit violations? How many of these are actually new employees? And how many of these are actually expired permits? Because you have to get, you've got to renew your education every 5 years. So how many do you, so this would be number 1, number 2, and number 4 that we're speaking of that have the permit violations: Parkstone Wood Kitchen, Main Street Pizza, and the Rockwood Fired Pizza. Were any of these expired permits?
I believe they all were.
All were expired permits, so not new.
Correct.
So to me, and Chair, with your permission, I think this is a critical piece that I think commissioners need to know. I'd like to ask that staff in the future, with these stipulated settlement agreements, that you put in here whether or not they're expired permits. Because for me, I think it provides a big context to the violation for commissioners to know. Are we talking about an employee that's been in the industry for 5+, 10+, 15+ years, who's been through some formal education, has done this, and permit has expired? Or are we talking about a licensee has just thrown out a new employee without any formal information? to me, I think there's a big difference there, and it provides a lot of context to us commissioners, and I'd like to ask that you guys put that in there.
Yes, we can do that in the future.
So let's follow through on that. Go ahead.
But one of the things that would be important to me, are these intentional violations, or is this just a missed administrative issue? In other words, they're not violating these intentionally, is it some other reason?
They've just they've
It
accidentally.
lapsed and they didn't see it or something like that, so
Yeah.
they're not trying to, that's important to me. They're not trying to sneak
Well,
something by us.
I follow your lead on this, obviously, and when I brought this up, I'm trying to figure out, I think Commissioner Doherty hit it. If these are intentional, we should do something about it. If this is an oversight after if somebody's working for you for 7 years and they don't renew their permit, you shouldn't be held responsible for it, in my mind. But
Well, it's still on my watch, right? So it is on my watch, and I will take that responsibility. But it's important to note that, I don't think that the schedule, the payment, the civil penalty should go up necessarily,
But what should we do? That's the only question. I don't care about the civil penalty. I'm saying, what should we do then?
I think these things are.
I think it's important, just like we talked about, to know whether they just let their thing lapse or not. I mean, that you trust the servers with your money, you trust them to do a lot of things. You trust them to renew their permit when it comes up. And so I think it's an honest mistake of the operator that maybe they should have wrote it down and had it ping them every time a server's up. But I think with the amount of turnover, I definitely feel for, if it simply was a lapse, that's tough. I mean, because they could have very well checked it valid when they hired them, and then it lapsed, and this is a high volume place. They could have or a seasonal place. They could have a lot of people in and out. So it's tough for them to know. But it's a violation nonetheless. So it's the intentionality seems to be the issue.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, a few months here, a few months there.
We're gonna continue seeing
Yeah.
a large number. The question is, what if anything that we want to make, I think we started, the conversation's good. Is it conscious or is it inadvertent,
One of the things I'd like to see, and I know you've all heard me say this before, is but holding the permittees feet to the fire a little bit more, hold them more accountable. So monetarily speaking, maybe have a bigger, if we could have a bigger penalty to the permittee, it would entice them to be a little bit more on top of it. Because what is it now? Is it $200?
A driver's license.
Similar to a
When you
driver's
know the
license.
manufacturer driver's license, then you're more apt to follow through with renewing your driver's license. I think
That's
we
only
need
my
to have more
point.
responsibility.
We should start thinking about that. Do we need the legislature to do that? No.
No, and I just add here, and I'll get a briefing for you on it. As we go to the electronic system, right, we're gonna be able to do a little bit more monitoring, notification, and other ways, so.
You get it all
I
back.
haven't reviewed that part of the plan on what we're doing myself. I know we had discussions about it, so we should make you aware of what we're planning there, because that could be a big help for these lapses. With DMV, I get some sent in the mail, right?
We can give them notice or something.
Yeah, that would solve a lot of the issues.
Yeah, notification.
Well, Steve, it's gonna come up again, because we're gonna see these, now that I brought it up, we're gonna see these things and we're gonna bring it up again, so.
And one of the things that'll help us make the connections, because we could even, with more ubiquitous data and electronic system, right? We could cross it over and make sure the employer potentially knows in there, right? Someone's expiring as well.
How can we help them?
Potential.
Yeah,
Well, and I like to make the point too, it's important to know the expired ones as opposed to the new ones, because, the expired ones, they've had formal education, service permit education, they know how to serve and pour safely. It's just the lapse in the expired permit. Now, it says maybe the context comes where as commissioners, and you could do what you want with it, but when you have a service permit, an employee who's been on the floor serving and pouring without any formal education, not really knowing how to do it safely, then, that's, I would like to know that. I think we all should know that.
We can definitely include that in the, going forward when we have these sort of current violations in the summary.
Thank you.
Well, if there's no substantive questions on it, I need a motion. We'll take them all at one time.
Chair,
Commissioner,
I move to ratify the 5 stipulated settlement agreements as proposed by staff.
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Chafon Corder.
Yes.
Commissioner Molinas,
Yes.
Commissioner Eval,
Yes.
Chair Rosenbaum.
yes. Any questions on the marijuana? Well, I have one, and it's not a question about it, but number 2, the rooted coast cannabis. You know, we read this stuff. To me, these people need help. I mean, they're just not running a good operation. And again, we just talked the same thing. We've had this conversation 3 or 4 times in the past. What do we do? You know, he's keeping the license, or they're keeping the license. They have big problems. You read this thing and they got problems. They don't know how to operate a business, in my opinion, when you see all these violations. We don't want to put them out of business, but they need some help. And we had this conversation 3 months ago. We had this conversation 5 months ago. So I guess the question to you, Steve, is how do we follow up and help these people? We were going to talk about some sort of a educational program for them.
These guys have already got the verification of compliance offered to them, correct? So,
I mean, that is our primary feature to take care of the educational issues now is verification of compliance. We don't ding you, we try to get you to correct it, right? And we put that into place. The rules package that you'll look at in November, right, will expand that process a bit. It's not purely educational, but it does give them a chance to correct errors, correct operations. But we don't have an assistance program. We don't, oversee or overlook their business enterprise. So
But just take a look at this. Anybody who's in business knows that there's something wrong. I hate to read these things, and we've said from the beginning, he's got a $12,000 fine, but they also need some help. I don't want to create more business for you, more problems for you, but you read this stuff and there's a problem with it.
One thing I thought was encouraging is the Labor Commission just approved some funding for some training programs, for industry training programs. And not that wouldn't necessarily address these issues, but it is definitely a step in the right direction to point people towards at least that this is for new industry, but these violations to me just won't be critical. These are. So it just is this. I don't know that there's these are things you could train somebody not to do. Like these just are like really. I mean, this is a highly regulated product. You have to comport with the seed to sale tracking system, and they just didn't do it, I guess. But
there's a disregard
yeah
for the rules here.
So I know we're time sensitive. We did this as a commission, Steve. We had business courses. So 8 years later, you've got people making these kind of errors. There's nothing we can do for them. The industry as a whole can organize and try to help themselves and help new people in it. But when you have people who don't know anything about business and they go into a business, if they fail, it's because they failed. Unfortunately, we can't hold our hands. We don't have the time or the resources, but we did do it. We did it in the early stages, how to get an attorney, how to get a CPA, how to be in business, how to go to banks, how to turn the lights on in the morning. We just unfortunately don't have the resources to do that. I feel for them, but when you fail the basics of your industry, you shouldn't be in the industry. whatever it is.
We still have that resource guide up too. I mean, we could send that to them, but I don't know if it's gonna help.
Well, I appreciate it. The same token, when you read something like this, they shouldn't be in business or they should get some help. One or the other.
Well, I think the point of having the industry, help, let them help themselves. I mean, we can give them all the resources we can, but
And some of them really, like there was a couple of them that reached out. That are trying to set up like, it's more an apprenticeship program. But they gave them, what, I don't know where that process is, but I know that was in process to train people coming into it. Like, so hopefully they're trained coming into it, that, they're not gonna have the issues coming out of it, so, but you are absolutely right. If the industry matures, it takes it upon itself to lead itself, because, we're the sticks, not the carrots.
Hey, Sarah,
Yes.
in here in the synopsis, it mentions that this licensee has taken on a new member. Are we confident that this new member is gonna help them get on the,
No.
help them out with this, these issues?
The report did not include any information on the new member. The report did note the fact that the inspectors notified licensee and the new member that the new member was responsible in the same way that the existing licensee had been for compliance with metric. So it was, the issue was addressed. Licensing, I'm sure, made a reasonable decision in terms of allowing the individual to become a licensee. So it's too soon to know.
So I have one quick question, and maybe this will satisfy me if nobody else. Do you have the ability to notify the commission in 3 months from today whether or not there's any more violations of this group?
I'm not sure if we have that ability to do that. I'd have to, that would be something where we'd have to be in coordination with some other parties in regards to that.
What would it take to let us know if there's any other additional violations?
From this particular.
Mr. Chairman, we could do this as a one-off if you want us to go back and look and report to you on a 3-month violation. And public safety can note it, check a file this one, come back and let you know that there's been no violations since this action. Until we get the automated system right, doing that ubiquitously across cases would be very hard.
How difficult would it be?
It's all manual. It will be manual for everyone. I'll have to have a staff member report on all the businesses and violations every 3 months that we did. It's a position. It's part of a work. It's a workload. It's all of it. You can get it done, but it's workload that we aren't accounted for.
And electronically, how soon will you have that ability?
We're about 2 years out on
2023,
Yeah.
2023.
But that has been a lot of our issue with compliance. We can't even, just the educational issue, we can't even push a button and ubiquitously communicate with everyone. It's been a real problem. More so with the marijuana industry because they came in after emails were developed, in the liquor side. A lot of our records didn't have even emails attached to them.
So I'm going to make a suggestion, one off. Take this case. 3 months from today, report back to us, but more important, notify Roasted Coast Cannabis that we are, as a commission, looking at them carefully on how they're operating in the future. That might help, it might not, but if that's the best we can do, that's the best we can do.
Again, the inspectors are probably, they're on the radar now. So I would
Right.
imagine the inspectors are going to, once there's smoke, they're gonna check for fire. So I think that maybe, for anybody that gets a violation, it's just a case you can speak to, but I do think that the inspector's probably gonna be checking in on it a little bit more frequency.
Well, we don't know that, but we have control by doing that. Jason, do you want to say something on this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, for the record, Chair.
Well, you came with the sit there, so you're gonna say something. We're not.
For the record, Jason Henson, Director of Compliance. So as you know, we have compliance issues occur with every licensee that we have. If we had the resources to follow up on every single thing to make sure it doesn't happen again, absolutely, we'd love to do that. We try to balance the severity of the activity with the resources that we put towards it. The VOC program is going to be a great assistance in that. It's also something that we'll be moving to the alcohol side. I know that's been a desire that will happen. You know, a part of the VOC program allows people to give, you know, we've always given informal opportunities for much activities. We track, you'd be amazed at how many informal ways we address things. And what you see is the formal approach, what goes to AHD. What you don't see is the verbal instructions, the verbal warnings that we give, VOC or not. It just happens through relationships. So, you know, what we're creating with the VOC now is giving us more opportunity to track this kind of stuff so you can see how we've done that. I mean, otherwise it's manually done in inspectors' notebooks and we don't put it in a system necessarily. There is a path forward for how we will have this information more electronically available to other departments within the agency so they can see the chain of events that have occurred. It's just very difficult. If there is an interest in the commission to focus in on a certain activity or a certain licensee, we're more than happy to extend resources towards that. I would just say that as a reminder, as we extend those additional resources towards that, we back it off in another area. So it's a balancing act often to determine, you know, what's important, what our priorities are, and take that lead from the commission and our executive director, and that's where we'll spend our time.
Any comments? I just hate to read this stuff and see it. It just.
Yeah, I would add that as Commissioner Revolt mentioned, we have tried to take a hand. So as when I was the director of licensing, there was a lot of work that we did to get us out of a hole that we had developed on the marijuana licensing side. And a big part of that, I believe, is because we have had such a hand-holding approach for so long. And that had a major recourse. There's benefits to walking people through every step of the way and you know, being their sidekick and being joined at the hip. There's certain benefits to that. But you know, we're a government agency with limited funding and limited resources, and we just, with the number of people that have an interest in being a part of either of our industries we regulate, we don't have those kind of resources to provide that service. So I would say, I would agree that, you know, at what point, I mean, all of this stuff, information is available online. It's available when you reach out to us. All you have to do is reach out to us. And that is the end. That's all I can say. And we will help, we will give them what they need, but if they don't take that initiative, there's really not much we can do.
I hate to hear that.
Are we gonna take them together?
Huh?
Or do you want to separate them?
Let's separate them. It doesn't matter. Let's do them together. Listen, I'm going to bring this up again in another month or two because we're going to see 3 or 4 of them again. It's just going to get, it's very frustrating.
Chair, I move to ratify the 2 stipulated settlement agreements as proposed by staff.
Commissioner Kern,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Japon Porter.
Yes.
Commissioner Melinas,
Yes.
Commissioner Revolt,
Yes.
Chair Rosenbaum.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Yes, I have to go back, Chair.
Goodbye.
Flight schedule.
Go.
That's why I drive. Yeah. That's my schedule.
Have a safe trip.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I will see you in Pendleton.
See you in your neck of the woods.
Thank you. You don't have to go next month. Steve, you got the floor.
I'm going to turn the floor over to Jason briefly because we had such an abysmal outing when we went out post-pandemic and did minor decoy checks, particularly in the community of Eugene. I committed to the legislature that we would right the ship on getting these done, that we would be out there doing our job. We know this is one of the highest values of execution for this agency is prevent sales to minors. And mainly just want Jason to take a moment on it. So for all those in the industry that are listening to us, that pay attention to us, we need to fix this problem. We need to fix it now. So Jason.
Yeah, again, for the record, Chair Rosenbaum, members of the commission, Jason Hanson, Director of Compliance. So a couple 2+ years during the pandemic, this is a part of our activity that was discontinued. I think we discussed that. It was known. It was, again, managing priorities and what we could do, understanding the restrictions in place, for staff safety, distancing, as well as recognizing we're working with minors in this role. So a little, just level set, minor decoy operations are conducted both on the alcohol and marijuana side of our industries, where we work with 18 to 20-year-olds to go in using their government legitimate ID to purchase product that should not be sold to anybody under the age of 21. And so we've begun doing minor decoys again in May of this year. And as was reported over the last couple of weeks, our results are poor, quite poor on the alcohol side. On the marijuana side, not bad. We're almost at our target, but let's focus on alcohol. So since May, we've conducted 6 separate operations, and the operations include, multiple checks from a handful to, a dozen or more, depending on how many we can get done in a day. We've conducted them in our Portland, Salem, and Eugene regions. We've done a total of 82 site visits, so 82 licensed locations where we've worked with minors to attempt to purchase alcohol. Our most recent one was done on September 9th in the Portland region. We're doing one, this week. We're out and about in the Eugene region again. As we've committed, we are ramping these up from none over the last few years to making them a better part of our routine business. But we're at 67% statewide compliance rate for alcohol. That's 82 visits with 27 sales of alcohol to minors. So it's a problem. The Eugene region specifically is a severe concern, especially if you look at the populations in the Eugene region, the university town. I will point out a couple specific regions where that results was not the case, so it's not a trend statewide. Our best results so far was an operation done in the Salem area where we went to Dallas, Grand Ronde, Independence, Monmouth, Rick Riall, Salem, and Willamina, and we had an 88% success rate, compliance rate. Another operation in the Dalles, 85% compliance rate, and in the Hood River County area, 70% compliance rate. So in Eugene, both of the ones we've done are 38% and 31% compliance rate, not good at all. We jump to the marijuana results that we've done so far. We've conducted 5 separate operations, a total of 81 visits, and our average compliance rate across the state is 86%. So very different on the marijuana side. There are some different requirements when it comes to selling marijuana. The ID must be checked. You must verify that you're 21. There's not that 26 and older or younger requirement to ID if someone appears to be under the age of 26. In fact, in one instance in Salem, and I don't have all the details yet, I get these weekly, but on September 15th, we did 36 in one day and only 1 sale, 97% success rate in the Salem area. So marijuana is looking much better. What we do about this and what we do to assist in people's success in this is we offer ID checking classes at no cost to the industry. Anybody, any licensee or permittee who would like to take an ID checking class, work with our inspectors, they can contact us. Prior to the pandemic in the Portland area, we used to hold a monthly class just on the calendar. It's the 2nd or 3rd Wednesday or Thursday of each month in the evening. What we saw prior to the pandemic, a lot of people didn't take advantage of that. So we moved to a we come to you approach. And that's really what we're doing statewide now is you let us know who you'd like to attend, or how many you're going to have, and we'll come to your licensed business. And so I've been asking that we track these essentially over the course of this year now. And we've conducted so far year to date 2022, 32 classes around the state. Every single class was at a licensed premises. Number of attendees at each class can range from 2. The lowest class attendance is 2, and the highest that I see here is 24, 23, into the 20s. Total of 350 people have attended those classes, those 32 classes. We continue to offer these and work with the people that request them, again, at no charge to them. helps them understand how to read an ID, how to identify fake IDs, what to do, what their responsibilities are. And you know, this is really the best thing that we can do to help them be successful. But again, I would put it back on our permittees and our people who are working for our licensees who may not require a permit. If you're just selling for off premise, to reach out to us so we can help you. We are available. We will be available.
Is there a designated staff that's doing this?
Yeah, these are our compliance inspectors that provide the training. So based on the location that you're at in the state, you can reach out to the local regional office or satellite office and contact us, and we come to you and provide that training, our certified inspectors.
That's great.
That is wonderful. What percentage of their time is devoted to this?
I don't have it offhand. It's a roughly an hour and a half course. And so I can tell you that we've conducted 32 classes. So, you know, with 350 people attending those 32 classes. So it's, you know, 32 classes over the course of the year, statewide, could be just an hour and a half in any random week, one evening.
So the compliance officer, after they get done with this, what's their other duties?
Well, their jobs are the ones out in the field, monitoring our licensed premises, doing inspections, doing observations. They're the people they're the face-to-face contact. They're the ones that licensees and the public get to see.
Do you know where I'm going with this? I'm going with this is saying, okay, you know where I'm going with this. I mean, why? You got an existing force there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why not just spend just a little time, and when you have a case like this marijuana case, why not send them to the compliance officer? Let them sit down and talk to them. You got a built-in system already.
So, you know, I can tell you a little bit about our response. So as far as like a failure for a marijuana or alcohol decoy, it's the inspectors that is out there with that minor decoy. When they fail, we do outreach with them. We let the licensee know. We let them know what they can do to not let this happen again. We identify the classes that they can take, and we provide whatever assistance we need. That is it's a person-to-person approach that we take once it occurs, for sure.
So,
is that what you're getting at?
So in the case that we just looked at before, are you telling?
This is the educational opportunity for inspectors to be out there in the field after a violation is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
For us, it's both educational opportunity, it's also a compliance opportunity because we're paying attention to them with their violations.
So did you guys go to these people and sit down with them and tell them your operation is unacceptable, even if for an hour?
We don't have a verification of compliance program on the alcohol side.
And that's not our
So when they-
responsibility. That is not our responsibility to sit down with them and say, you're running a bad business. That simply isn't our role.
It reflects on us.
It reflects more on them and the industry. We need the industry to step up to the plate. They come here and talk about, can you help me? Can you help our farm? Can you help our little small businesses? But they don't organize enough to go to the legislature and get the rules and laws changed. They want us to do it for them. And we've done a lot for them. So I understand, I mean, you and Michael Harper would be, I'm getting Michael Harper. He's fucking Harper, man.
I could agree with you except for one thing. If it's not our responsibility, then we shouldn't be looking at this and voting on it. It is our responsibility because they're coming to us and saying, go and vote on this thing. It is our responsibility.
Asking us for help, or the industry's coming to us when they want something from us to step. But the individual licensees, if they don't come to our people and say, help me understand how to follow the rules that are set in place, and the rules that we have or rules that we got from the industry. We didn't make these up.
I fully appreciate that. The thing is that they're asking us to vote on this thing. You look at it from a business point of view, it's not working. If we have some staff that can, at least sit down with them. I do think it's our responsibility. And I'm gonna tell Michael what you said.
Chair, I would point out, right, and it's a staff priority time research. We do first call. When you come into the licensing system, we'll go out and visit the licensee, talk to them about what they need to do to be successful on the alcohol side. And I don't know what our rate is of doing that.
Well, the timing is, can vary, but that is a requirement, especially on the alcohol side. That's been around for a very long time. I think within 60 days of getting issued your license, we have inspectors that go out to do what we call a first call. And that's where we go over, we check to make sure their insurance is up, the right minor postings are up. We provide any education. It's a proactive approach to communicate, build that relationship. We're not there necessarily as a compliance, are you in line? No, we're here to help you. And this is, if you're not, we're going to help you get there because you're just starting your business. Now, you might have been in business for 10 or 20 years and that, is not going to, has occurred much prior to that. But I would say like all of these education classes that I just mentioned, these 350 people that have attended, those are people reaching out to us asking for help. We're offering that. That's happening prior. This isn't a follow-up to a compliance case. Although we do make that a part of our communication with them so that it doesn't happen again. So we absolutely have those things what I'm hearing you say, I think it does occur.
Ignorance is bliss. If I didn't know a damn thing about it, I could sit here and be very happy. I'm sitting here reading and looking about a licensed person by the state of Oregon who obviously doesn't know how to do business or completely ignores the rules. I don't like that. And Marvin is 100% correct in his statements on it. Ignorance is bliss for me. Now that I see it, now that I read it, something needs to be done about it. It's just, to me, it's as simple as all that. Maybe not to anybody else.
Well, remember, I don't know when it was, but it's 2017, late 2017, 2018. I think it was the cannabis industry. Like they had all those, like it was and I don't remember what we did, but I just remember, you spoke at that meeting and because they had gotten horrible rankings and I forget what happened. I think the law changed because everybody freaked out.
We changed our rule on the penalty and moved it to the highest on the first offense of selling to a minor. It was like the highest level fine, $5,000. We moved it up to the highest level. They didn't execute steps.
This is on the MJ side of things.
And this commission did change for alcohol. Someone will have to help me, but we did move up the penalty for alcohol and 6 months ago, a little bit, right? And that sequence. So, we've been looking at that. I think the point, Matt, if I don't want to.
No, well, all I'm saying is we fixed the problem one time. So I'm just trying to think what we did that time that worked. And maybe it's just getting the word out that, what we did was raise the fee significantly when you get this. So I don't think we want to do that, but it's just like, especially right now, but it's like, we just get the word out or something.
We got to get the word out. That's why I wanted to put this on this tape at this meeting, because we got to follow. We're not going to stop doing these until our rates go up. We're going to see it. So if you're in the alcohol industry, make sure those new employees you got out there post-pandemic are checking ID and doing it right. You know how to do it. We've done it before in the past. We will be published on this issue in the Orla publication. I think it just came out. We're talking about it there, but we'll combine ubiquitous communication with continued effort until we see these rates go up.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I got that newsletter yesterday, that insider piece from Orla, and I know they're putting the word out as well.
Because they'll take
Industry's
our
gotta do
arms
better.
down in
They gotta do
Salem to get to raise it. I mean, I don't want to, and we don't want to have to do that. So I think the more we get the word out proactively, that's what fixed it last time. That's probably what's going to be suggested to fix it this time. We don't want to do that.
There's a threshold of embarrassment here for those folks. I've already, Fred Meyer proactively contacted us and asked us more what they could do, although I think they're.
You see what they're doing. They're, store policies are changing to implement requirement for scanning of IDs. Doesn't matter how old you look, that they are required to scan IDs. Now, I will tell you something that we see on occasion, and this is a human error that people just need to stop doing. And that is they will punch in the information that they get on an ID and their ID verification tells them, no, this isn't okay, or provides a prompt of some type, and then they enter it again, thinking they're entering something wrong, but in fact, it's telling them, no, you're not old enough, or they're scanning the ID and you're not old enough, and they'll enter their own phone number, or they'll do one way to get around the system so they can still make the sale. And so these are individuals making that decision, employees of those licensees making those decisions. I don't know how to fix that. I don't think it's a simple.
Accountable, hold
well,
their feet to the
I
fire.
would say
more
that,
accountable,
I-
because we ding the licensee, right? But
Yeah.
right there in that.
Yeah, if
specific-
you're a
it's
permit, if you're a
permittee.
permittee, if you have a permit, yes, then you can be held accountable that way. There are ways to do that, but I would just submit. My experience, fines, I want people to understand why we're not selling to minors. There is a public health concern to this, and I think we need to talk more about that. You want to start seeing what happens to people who shouldn't be having alcohol in their hands. You want, Commissioner Reval can, I'm sure, speak to his career about the kind of things that, the events that occur, the tragic events that occur when minors get alcohol and don't understand how to handle it, and they're not capable of getting there with using alcohol appropriately. That's what I want people to understand. More so than the potential fine, which I think is important. I get it's one of the sticks, but really there's a lot more to this, and we need to talk about that as well.
And I just know the legislature and we, right, as a part of our rules, part of what we have made alcohol delivery more available. We've and to the door and otherwise, and not seeing this happen right in a physical location doesn't bode well for what we're doing out there. There are promising technologies that will help us do ID more ubiquitous. Scanning of IDs. We will work during, I know this issue is going to come up, it's coming up all over the country about what you do, but seeing these kind of results out there is not helpful for that expansion of delivery to the door that the industry has just asked the legislature for and us. So between us, the industry, and this communication, we got to get this right, and we got to fix our immediate problem now in months, not with any delay.
Sure.
Commissioner.
I'm famous for hammering the Portland metropolitan area, but you need to continue those efforts in the Eugene Springfield area.
Absolutely.
It is a community that does not feel that it needs to abide by a lot of rules. They don't like to be told no. And it's not just simply because the University of Oregon is there. It is a culture that doesn't like to comply. And so those efforts need to continue, and there is no miracles. It is simply, you will comply. In this situation, you will be the board. You will comply, period. Because the consequences of not complying with these rules and having underage drinking is far worse than anybody wants to see. And to have delivery in that community, unfettered, it's a nightmare waiting to happen. So please continue.
And that's the administrative reports that are out there.
All right, yeah, no, that's good. Listen, the only other thing I want to say is that, and I'm addressing to the commissioners, as a body, we're pretty much in agreement before we make decisions, and it's been that way. But I think the important thing is for us to be able to bring up all different sorts of ideas and concepts, because that's what we're here for. And we're not going to make a decision on it unless we have agreement on it. But the important thing is to be able to talk about it and open up our ideas and concepts to, things that's why we're here. I'm not ever worried about making the right decision on it. We will come to the right decision, but we need to be able to throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks or not. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
Any further stuff before we go? Meeting adjourned.